feature presentation.
Oh, we're back. Oh, I'm thinking I'm back. Remember that one, Eric?
Oh, yeah.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 122 of the Untitled Movie Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Matt Rohrbeck, alongside, he's allergic to tomatoes, but he is tomato meter approved, Eric Marchin.
Matt just had a burger, and the burger did not have tomatoes on it, but I did request jalapenos, and oh boy, I am feeling it.
Spicy boy. It's going to be a spicy episode. It's our first episode in, oh my God, like
30 years.
a month and a bit. Our last episode was, is Moonfall the greatest movie ever made, in April? Yes, everyone.
It's a legacy sequel.
You know, even in April, we were a little sporadic, right? Like we had Absolute Mayhem. We had all of our Everything Everywhere All at Once stuff at the beginning of that month. And, since the Oscars, it's been kind of sporadic and weird on this show. We haven't had a ton of episodes. We have had some great interviews with Jay Cheel and the Daniels and Ki Hui Kwan and stuff like that. But
And you've been on Kind of Funny a couple of times.
yeah, and we've done reviews. You know, you have your Multiverse of Madness, Northman, Chippendale. We also had Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, Sonic the Hedgehog. Like we've had stuff throughout April. But then a couple of things happened during that time, which is why we've been a little sporadic and haven't put out a ton of stuff. Firstly, Eric got COVID. So
which you can listen to me talk to Jay Cheel about that in the episode where I interviewed him for Cursed Films 2. And I was just starting to come down with it at that point.
And then ironically, during the Moonfall episode, you were just getting over it. I remember you talked about on that episode getting over COVID. And then ironically, on this episode, I will talk about how I just got over COVID. So you probably, I mean, a lot of people who listen might not follow me on social where I overshare way too much. But I caught COVID. It's been a week and a half now. After, like, we took a good almost 2 weeks off when we were going to record, because we recorded Chippendale in between not having COVID and having COVID, or me having COVID. And so much has happened since then. It's been over a month since we've recorded. We've done a few reviews, like I mentioned, and you guys can check out our new reviews. They're not really for new things. It's just we only got around to recording them now. We're catching up with stuff. So you can check out our review for Top Gun Maverick and Stranger Things 4. And you'll also be able to check out our review for Ms. Marvel on June the 6th. Depending on when you're listening to this, it might already be up. So
is it the 6th or is it the 7th?
Oh, the 7th. Because 7th is Tuesday, correct? Yeah, 7th. It's going up. My bad. Thank you for that correction, Eric. The day before the premiere, we'll be reviewing the first 2 episodes. You guys can check that out.
And we'll also have reviews for Spiderhead and Lightyear coming up.
Yeah. And we'll talk about the plans for everything, because I am leaving to go get married in exactly a week, and I will be gone for 3 weeks. So we haven't really discussed
sporadic again.
We haven't really discussed exactly what the plan is for when I'm gone, but like we will have some reviews, like Eric just mentioned, that will be planned out over that time. Some interviews that Eric will be doing while I'm gone. Hopefully, knock on wood. We haven't confirmed those yet, but it's looking like we will. And then we'll have some reviews for some things, and whether or not, I highly doubt I will podcast from my honeymoon and things like that. So maybe I'll do a short episode, 30 minutes from my villa that I rented for my honeymoon, but we'll see. Maybe give everyone
welcome to
the
romantic Matt hour, or the romantic Rohrbeck
from the hot tub or whatever. So anyways, we'll get into all of that.
Would Derek be there though?
That's where I fucking got it, I think, dude. So I'll talk about all of that. But
but Ryan was okay though, wasn't he?
Yeah. So much has happened, everyone. So
these people don't even know who we're referencing.
No, they don't. They have no idea. So since the last episode, I got busy planning a wedding with Nevis, because we were getting down to the crunch time for all of that. So, my days,
Croatia crunch time.
My days are limited in the sense of, like, I have Family Feud that I have to work a full 40-hour work week, basically. Then on top of that, I have wedding stuff with Nevis. On top of that, I have stuff I want to do with Nevis. On top of that, we have this show and reviews are kind of the priority, because that's the stuff we we commit to studios, we see screeners, and we want to make sure we do that kind of stuff. And then this show is the fun thing where Eric and I just shoot the shit for often way too long.
So that last episode should have lasted you know,
at least this month and a half.
Yeah.
Like, and then in between that, you know, we saw Top Gun Maverick, and then we had I saw all 3 Lord of the Rings movies in IMAX in that time, right before I got
the Ontario
COVID.
Cinesphere.
So I'll talk a little bit about that in what we've been watching. I'll talk about the first 3 episodes of The Boys, which I've seen as well in what we've been watching. And Barry, they haven't used that song yet, and they should. And we'll talk about Barry and other shows that we've been watching. But I think the big thing is, yes, Eric on the last episode talked about his battle with COVID. I will talk about mine. I guess we can start with Eric put together with other friends and family. I love it. You're wearing it. I love it. Eric's wearing the Mattchelor shirt, which was my bachelor party shirt. So Eric and a bunch of my buddies put together the Mattchelor party. So we went out for my bachelor party. We went to a Toronto Blue Jays game, which was the fastest Blue Jays game I've ever been to in my life. We were worried we weren't going to make our dinner reservation, and we ended up getting there way too early because the baseball game was 2 hours long. It was the fastest baseball game I've ever been to in my life. I got to take notes on when we're talking about things. So,
baseball game.
well, the Mattchelor Party. I'm also going to open this White Claw peach iced tea,
and I'm drinking a Diet Pepsi.
In celebratory nature, I'm going to have this White Claw as I talk about all of this stuff. So, anyways, we start with the baseball game, the fastest baseball game ever. Did I catch COVID at the baseball game? Maybe, because that was the busiest thing that we went to, where the Toronto Blue Jays just absolutely clowned out the other team. It wasn't like a blowout, but it was just one of the fastest baseball games I've ever been to. If anyone's been to a baseball game, which a lot of people who love movies don't love sports, so maybe not a lot of you haven't. Eric's probably
seen baseball movies.
How was it going to a baseball game? You probably haven't been in a very long time.
Yeah,
right?
I think the last time I went was like back in like 2002.
It
was fine. It like you said, like it was so quick. Like I was expecting it to feel like 4 or 5 hours, like an episode of Stranger Things season 4, but instead it turned out being rather enjoyable. I think it was also fun. Just like actually being in a crowd, but also kind of still being careful.
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff. But
they ended up opening the dome and
yeah. And when they opened the dome, that's really where it felt like, you know, the sun was shining in. It kind of felt like a perfect sort of pre-summer, you know, warm weather outdoor event that it really lightened the mood. And I think it really helped with like, even just like, you know, there are times like in the fall and winter, especially in the last little bit, that like I had some depression, and sort of it kind of felt like it was alleviating,
as we
a little
all
bit.
Kind of did, yeah, seasonal depression and things like that. I will say, so who went to the Mattchelor Party? It was Eric set it all up. Eric's brother.
Well, no. I gotta say, so Nevis, your sister Sarah, Ryan Hancock, and my brother Kyle deserve a lot of credit. So.
Well, shout out to those guys, but Eric, thank you. But so yeah, my buddy Ryan Hancock was there,
and he got these sweet shirts.
He has seasons tickets to the Blue Jays, so he helped set that up. If people are movie fans and not sports fans, if you saw Turning Red, it's where the finale of Turning Red took place. That's
when it was called the Sky Dome.
Yeah, now we're at the Rogers Center, and we were there watching the baseball game. Some friends from high school, Anthony and Greg, came. Hadn't seen them in a really long time. My buddy Kevin McGuire came, and he, who was a guest on the show once, him and Rihanna do an article over on Eclectish, where they have to return some videotapes as their article, and that they do. And they've been watching tons of movies. Great dude. I worked with him at the Blue Jays. He was there. And my buddy Derek, who I worked with at Rogers, who might have been patient zero. I'm throwing it out there, Derek. So anyways, baseball game was a blast. Eric and these guys had these really dumb t-shirts made that had some great quotes and things like that. And so getting into the movie theme stuff, we went out for dinner, steak dinner after that, which was great.
With the Keg Mansion.
At the Keg Mansion, which the Keg, if anyone's from Canada, one of the better chain restaurants, chain steakhouse. It's one of those classic things you go to with your parents, or anytime you have a celebratory thing in the suburbs of Ontario, at least. You go to the Keg, and there's a couple in Toronto. One's in like an old mansion, so we went to that one, which was a lot of fun. Had some great food, and then we went to Stormcrow Manor, which, if you guys are from the GTA and haven't been there and you're listening to this show, you should definitely go. It's a nerdy bar where they have all nerdy drinks based on movies and TV shows and different things like that. And they have a thing called a D20 shot, where you roll a Dungeons and Dragons D20 die, and you have to do the shot based on the number that you roll. There's all these ridiculous. I had a drink called Beetlejuice. We were sitting in the Red Room from Twin Peaks, which was awesome, or the Black Lodge, which also had the bar from The Shining behind us
as we watched X-Men movies.
Yeah, as there was an X-Men marathon being played
with the smoothing
motion smoothing on.
Yeah.
It was fucking hilarious. So had a wonderful time with those guys there. And then
we left Greg at Stormcrow.
Oh my god, we left one of my buddies there. We all left, and we got halfway to the next place we were going, and we are like, oh my god, we left Greg. And I like sprinted back because I felt so bad. We left him there. Sorry. My COVID cough still coming through. And then we went to this other dingy bar,
the
Artful Dodger that Derek took us to, which was also really fun. Where there's some people playing pool upstairs, and it was just this dive bar kind of thing. And we had some beers there. And then the night got later, that's where we split up from all of you guys. But I got a little tipsy, and Derek's like, his wife and daughter were at the cottage, and he was having a bachelor weekend as well. And he's like, come over to my hot tub. I'm like, I'm all in on that. Let's go to your hot tub. And it was just me, Hancock, and Derek.
Kyle wanted to go so badly. Like he was like,
yeah, you're allergic to cats. And that's one reason.
That was the excuse to get out of it.
It was fun, dude. Like it was fun. Don't get me wrong.
Seeing the photos that were sent in the email chain, it was like.
So we get to Derek's, and we ordered McDonald's and crushed some McDonald's before we got into the hot tub. And at this point, it's like 4 a.m. And like, I was exhausted. And right as I got there and was eating the McDonald's, I'm like, this is a horrible idea. I should have gone home to go to sleep. And then we chilled in his hot tub for a bit. Hancock fell asleep in the hot tub, talked about Star Wars and all this other nerdy shit too, because Derek's a big Star Wars guy, and just hung out with him. And then that was the night. Got home at like 6 a.m. Had a wonderful time at the Mattchelor Party. I got home super late, so all of Sunday I'm like, I need to sleep. Like, I'm not gonna do much. Monday came around, I'm like, I'm still, maybe, as you get older, a hangover sometimes takes 2 days or something to get over it. And then so Nevis and I go out for brunch it's the holiday Monday, Victoria Day, right?
Yeah, the long weekend.
Yeah.
2-4 weekend.
Nevis and I go out for brunch. I get home from brunch, and I'm like, I don't feel great. Like,
did you feel like it in the back of your throat first? Like
a little bit. So sore throat, and I felt nauseous. Like, so I thought it was the food, where I'm like, oh, something at brunch. Like, I had like, greasy kind of brunch. I had like
greasy spoon kind of stuff,
baked eggs, and like these hash browns, and a big sausage, and like, like it was a good ass breakfast. But then like I got home, and I'm like, I feel like my throat's a bit sore, and I feel like I need to throw up. And like I felt kind of like nauseous, and I was like, I need to sleep more. And I ended up just like sleeping more Monday. And then Tuesday, I continued to not feel great. And it was a weird feeling where I'm like, And it got worse as Tuesday went on, to the point where it felt like a flu, honestly. Like, mine started with like nausea and flu-like symptoms, and then a headache, throat hurt a little bit. And then Tuesday afternoon, I started to go, ooh, I think this might be the vid. And like, I'm like, but I don't know, right? I tested on Tuesday morning and it was negative. Um, and I'm like, okay, well, interesting. And then Tuesday night, dude, I had one of the worst nights I've had in a really long time where I was having chills. I was literally like shivering all like and sweating one moment and hot flashes. And then just like, how I was in New York for your 30th birthday?
Oh yeah.
Like I felt like that where like I was just like this, like I couldn't get warm and like, or then 1 second I'd be
Your
drenched
body
in sweat.
aches.
And yeah, body aches was the one thing on Tuesday afternoon. So that led into the chills on Tuesday night. The body aches on Tuesday were like my whole body was sore. And I'm like, we didn't do anything. Like I know I jogged to go get Greg. And I'm like, and I know I'm really out of shape. So like maybe I'm like, that's why my body's sore. It was just a long day. So like I kept giving myself excuses, but like it was the chills on Tuesday night where in the middle of the night I was just shaking in bed the whole night and had a horrible sleep. Where I took a test on Wednesday morning and I'm like, it has to be it. And then like instantly that rapid test, like, where it says wait 15 minutes, it waited 30 seconds.
It's
It
like,
was
no,
like,
you got it.
yeah, it was like deep red line on the positive and like, no, you fucking have COVID, you idiot. And like, I was like, fuck, 2.5 years I went by without getting it. And you were in the same boat a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
And,
but I was so pissed off because a family member brought it in, and
sure.
it was like again, like I had basically I probably would have gotten it during the Bachelor Party as well. Like
I mean,
like as soon
it's
as you
so
texted me, I
interesting.
tried
Yeah.
again. I took two rapid tests and came back
But you
negative. So
probably have a little bit of immunity with
the
your just
antibodies,
getting
yeah.
it. And I know it's different reports from people. They said it's very unlikely you'd get it within 3 months of having it. Like very unlikely.
Yeah.
You'd be super unlucky if you got it. There have been people who got it a month after getting it and things like that. But like it's pretty, 3 months seems to be the minimum. 6 months seems to be the maximum of like you are in the clear at least.
So the
So
silver lining
um
here is you will probably be okay during the wedding. You know,
that is the silver lining that kept Nevis and I through this last 2 weeks or week and a half or so, because like then for that whole week it was just absolute hell. And like you talked about
plenty
it
of
a little bit.
drugs.
And yeah, just
Anything that'll kill or
alternating.
numb the pain.
I have bad reactions to like cold medication, so I couldn't take any of that, which kind of sucked. So like a lot of the congestion and coughs, I just had to kind of deal with. But like Advil and Tylenol helped for headaches and body aches and fevers and stuff like that.
You
But
still
like
have lozenges as
it's
well, right?
tons of lozenges,
Yeah.
yeah. But like it was hell, man. Like I'm jealous of the people. Obviously there's people. I'm still very lucky.
Yeah,
I got
you've had
through
your
it.
two
I
boosters and
yeah
your additional shot, and you'll
shot
get
and like
your fourth one once
when I
you can.
can,
Yeah.
which we have to wait 3 or 6 months. I forget what
Yeah.
it is now, but like, um, and I felt like I got hit pretty hard by it. Obviously, not as hard as people who have been hospitalized and have health issues and older people and things like that. I'm still very lucky that we're young and relatively healthy.
Or weren't a part of that first
And
wave when it first hit,
exactly.
right?
So I'm still very lucky, but it still kicked my ass, dude. Like it was I caught up on movies and TV shows and stuff and like a lot of TV. That's when I watched Stranger Things and Obi-Wan and I stayed up and watched Obi-Wan at midnight even though I was in the middle of COVID and I was like I should really be sleeping right now.
But
But
it's
like
hard to sleep as well. Like you're
it is,
exhausted,
yeah.
but you're also extremely lucid to the point where it's like you don't even know sometimes if you're sleeping. Like you kind of just
Yeah.
lose time.
Yeah, and I know none of this is movie related, guys, but it's partly why we've not been recording. So, I mean, we'll talk about movies in a sec, but, um, and I know you guys just like listening about whatever bullshit we're going through, but like,
But
it
your
was
health is most important when it comes
totally.
to
So that's
like
why we didn't record, and like, we gave, when you got it, we kind of took 2 weeks off to let you
that's when I
kind of
watched
recover.
Severance.
Yeah. And then we had other things and then I got it and we kind of took another 2 weeks off from when I got it. And yeah, man, it whooped my ass and I'm so glad I have those 3 shots because like I couldn't imagine what it was like without them. it's like, man, this thing is still out there. It's still brutal. It's
It's never
like,
gonna go
it's,
away. Like
yeah,
that's the thing. Like I think people need to really understand. It's like the flu. It's like once a new disease or pathology is
just makes its
introduced to
way
the
into the, yeah.
it's going to get better in the sense that
It'll probably get weaker, or will
yeah,
get
or our
better.
booster shots
Boosters will get
and our
better.
yeah, our immune systems will adapt. But it's like I mean, it's like, why do we still give, polio shots and all those shots to babies? Because it's still there. It's still a part of the ecosystem now.
Yeah.
And like that's the thing where, like, to your point, I think that having those shots and like to continue to, like, if you haven't gotten them yet, please do.
Get your third one if you haven't. I know a lot of people who just got the two and
too,
didn't
and
bother
yeah.
with the third one. And I'm like, and it seems like the boosters kind of wane off after 6 months ish, right? And then I was right at the 5 month mark when I got it, and I think you were about the same. And I'm so glad my parents are getting their fourth shot before they go over to Croatia, so that's really great. And yeah, dude, like it was rough. It was like one of the like it reminded me of that thing I caught while I was in New York on your 30th. That thing kicked my ass, but this just felt like the worst flu I've ever had in my life. And like I had the one that really felt like a flu, because I know not a lot of people have that one, but I not too much information, but I had like flu like symptoms that I was not expecting, um where I had to make sure I kept hydrated because I was just, I couldn't keep things down. Like I couldn't, like it was brutal at times where I was like, I was having and each day it felt like something different. Like each day felt like, all right, you're done with that symptom. Here, now you get this one. And like each day felt like a rotating thing of like, here's something new, and you won't be able to sleep tonight, but you'll be able to do this, but then tomorrow you'll feel like that,
And
and
as
then
soon as
that,
you kind of get adjusted to what you have symptoms
yeah,
wise, you'll have something new or it'll
yeah.
change. Like the first night I had, I like, again, like the body soreness, but also like I was so sensitive, like like even just a blanket on my, like on my torso felt like it was like painful. Um and then in the morning it was like, okay, now it's turned into congestion and breathing problems,
Oh my
and
god, dude,
the
it was
whole
the
time
most
you're going to be
congested I've
tired
ever been.
through the
Yeah,
whole
like
thing.
and I they say the exhaustion thing, like second day, or on the Wednesday, which was one of my worst days, Wednesday, Thursday. Wednesday, when I was still figuring out if I had it, and then I just tested and found out I had it. I'm like, I need to have a shower. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I thought at a time I had to sit down. Like, and I haven't like that's how exhausted I was mid shower, where I was like hunched over and just like my arm resting and just trying to wash my body and like in my hair, and just every movement I'm like, I think I need to sit down right now. And it was like shocking. And like I don't want this to be the whole COVID episode, but it is why we've been off. But anyways, I'm
You,
on
you
the,
you're now going to be a sponsor or spokesperson, for those sit down bathing things that you put in your,
yeah,
like,
like a little
for older people.
chair, yeah, like
We're going to be like,
I dude,
we'll
I
get
thought,
sponsorship for
I'm
that.
like, I thought at that point I needed one of those, because like it was just exhausting to do anything. And
The
then
shower did feel nice, I will say that
oh,
for
totally,
me. Like
afterwards,
it
like
did feel like that was like one of, like, I was taking like 2 showers a day because it was like
I
one of
wish
the
I had that
few.
energy at that point. But
It
like
was like it was the only thing that was giving me like
I agree.
any
Like even when
relief.
you feel congested and stuff like that, a shower and the hot steam and stuff like that always helps. So I don't know. I think talking about it is good, because if anyone still hasn't gotten it, and if you end up doing it, like it was like I think both me and you, Eric, we really didn't want to get it, and we both had anxiety and stuff like that too. And health stuff is always what triggers a lot of my anxiety. And regular sicknesses I'll get if they last a bit too long. I'm like, this is it. I'm like, and this is never going away. This is how I am now, or this is gonna kill me. And then like getting COVID was like the immediate, when it hits you, you're like, you go into panic mode a little bit, but then you start to go, okay, I need to chill. I need to just deal with this thing, and get lots of fluids and sleep and things like that. I'm still, we've been podcasting for a couple hours, and it's starting to hit me even right now as we're talking. And I'm a week and a half out of it, or or yeah, just about a week and a half. And I still find by 2 p.m. ish, 3 p.m. ish, like I start to kind of hit a wall still. And some days are better than others, and depending on how much sleep I got and all that. But even right now, like my nose is a bit stuffed, and Nevis is still going through it. Like hers is last. That's the other thing. I unfortunately gave it to her, and that was my worst fear. Like we stayed separated for right when I started to feel a little sick. We were like, okay, separate rooms, masks on. It's probably too late because I came home on Sunday. We spent time together. We went to brunch on Monday. Like we lived together. Like at that point, I
It's
wasn't
harder to avoid at
yeah,
that point.
especially in a small 1-bedroom apartment. And I wasn't thinking of any of it until I started to feel symptoms. And then she didn't test positive until Thursday, which was like my third day or fourth day of already having it. And so it took a while for her to test and get a positive result, but she ended up unfortunately also getting it. So it's been, shitty. She was a couple days delayed from me. So if I'm still feeling it at times a week and a half later, she still is a couple days behind me. So we're obviously both, we did, you know, they only say 5 days. And if you feel pretty good after that, you can pretty much go out and do things, which is weird when they were originally saying 2 weeks. Right. But we've gone out and like we both feel good enough to, and we don't have symptoms like other than me feeling tired, like that's, and Neva's feeling tired at times and stuff like that, and having that lingering, like you don't have that contagious cough anymore. It's almost just that lingering cough or whatever. That's like
It's
I'll
just
have a
more like a
hacking.
dry tickle kind of thing.
Yeah,
And
where you have to clear your throat, which turns into this.
yep.
For me, I've always had like a bad woofing like cough sometimes. So yeah,
And
man.
also, I
Yeah.
mean, it's the summer, or we're coming into the summer months as well. And if you have allergies, that's another thing where it's like that's like okay, you have to worry about is it COVID or is it just
Well, that's why I think
allergies?
today, like, I think it is allergies because my eyes feel a little bit more too. But and we went out earlier, but I feel good. Like I had beers the other night. Like I've gotten back to. I had no appetite for a couple days. Like
I
there was
lost
like
all like taste
oh, you
for a
did too.
couple
Nevis
days.
did
Yeah.
too. Nevis is finally getting her taste back. And that, if you guys, if anyone knows Nevis, like food, she's a huge foodie, and like it's a huge important part of her life. So like that was really shitty for her, and it's scary too, right? When you have this thing that you really don't you don't know how long these things are gonna last, right? Like, and it's shitty. And luckily, she is getting her taste back. It's not like fully back, but she's starting to get it back, which is a good thing. And like I never lost my taste. I felt like it was maybe dulled a little bit at one point where I'm like it was harder to smell things or harder to taste, but it never fully went away for me. So I guess that's it's just different for everyone. So it was a wild, shitty. I don't want my parents to get it, or I'm glad they're getting their fourth dose. And
Well, same thing with my grandparents. Like they
yeah.
just got their fourth shot a couple weeks ago, and it was just like it's one less thing to kind of like stress about. And you're
Yeah,
just like,
man.
okay, like it's something that you can recover from, but it's still not like it's not a pleasant experience
No, I
whatsoever.
wouldn't.
And like I just have no time now for anybody who thinks COVID isn't real. It's just like, come on, really?
Or that it's like, oh, it's just the flu, or it's just a cold. And I'm like, yeah, sure, it's similar, but like it kicked my ass way more than a cold does, or a flu bug that lasts a day or two, right? Like
Masks should be
there's
mandatory still. And like the best advice that I think both of us can give is just get your shots if you don't have them. If you do, stay up to date. Wear a mask, double mask if you feel comfortable to do that as well. Have hand sanitizer. Obviously, these things aren't necessarily going to keep you immune, but it does minimize the risk. And that is really important, especially when people are going outside more in the summer months.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'll continue on public transit and most, indoor, like I hate
But you'll
wearing it
stop
too.
licking
Don't get me
rails
right.
at least. Please stop
Yeah.
doing that.
And that's what I mean, like the bachelor party where I think I got it, right? And that's the other thing. Only two guys out of everyone, which I'm so glad because there's a couple guys that came that have young children. My buddy Kevin recently, like literally
With his
his
sweet
baby,
hair.
and sweet beard, and like he just had a baby boy like literally 2 weeks before my bachelor party. And then my friend Anthony, his daughter is like 11 months, I think, or 10 months. And like, so I was worried. I didn't want those guys to get it, right? Because
Yeah.
I didn't want their families to be put at risk and their young children to be put at risk. So I felt really guilty um originally. And then I was very glad that, and Derek also has a daughter who's I think just over 10 or 11 or 12. And luckily, I don't know if his daughter got it. His wife ended up getting it, but it was just Derek and I that got it out of the group. So was it the hot tub? Probably. But then Hancock somehow is either immune or he just was sitting at the right angle or something like that. But then like I remember other guy like my buddy Kevin's like, oh, I sat across from Derek the whole night, or people who were sitting across from me. And like you were sitting pretty much across from me from the
Mhm.
thing, but again, you were probably, knock on wood, immune. Um,
Well, that's like
and
even why, like when I got sick, which was also a long weekend, which was the Easter long weekend. um, that was the weekend where everybody was supposed to first meet Ivor, because
yeah,
my mom has, and my stepfather, but um and Kyle has as well, but like my grandparents haven't met their great grandson yet. I hadn't met Ivor, so that was going to be that weekend. And so like the decision there was like, okay, well, we need to cancel this because obviously no one wants to get Ivor
well,
sick.
of course, yeah,
He's not even 1 years old yet. So but it was also frustrating because like my grandfather right now is not doing well, and one of the things he really wanted was to see his great grandson, and
yeah.
so we did recently when everybody was tested. It was a wonderful Sunday afternoon and things like that. But yeah, it was just one of those things where it's like, yeah, you always worry, like still, especially for the young and old, and like, are you going to give it to somebody, and you'll never know because you can't determine who
Oh, I
transmitted
don't
it
know
to
if I
who.
gave it to
So,
Derek or Derek gave it to me, or if we
or the
both
hot
got
tub just
it,
had it.
or we gave the hot tub gave it to us, or someone at the Jays game. Like it's like we kept it pretty contained to our group at the other places. Like I wasn't worried about the keg, or I wasn't worried about Stormcrow really, because we were kind of isolated in our groups. Or even the dive bar that we went to, like there were some other people in that room, but like I never felt uncomfortable. Like the Jays game was the only super busy. Like all the other places were busy, but that's the only place we were around a bunch of other people. And I will say, like, you get a little bit more relaxed. You get a little bit more, you slack a little bit when you're with a group of friends who are all drinking and you're having a good time at your bachelor party. You don't want to necessarily wear a mask the whole time. So, like, I probably kept my mask off a little bit more than what I usually do, right? Like usually it's on all the time. I only take it off if I'm not around other people at a movie or something like that. Like if I'm, if people are 25 feet away and it's an half empty theater, like I don't mind taking my mask off. But for the most part, if I'm sitting around people at the movies, I'll keep it on the whole time unless I take a sip of cherry Coke or have some popcorn or something like that. But and those are the only places I really go. And Nevis and I will go out to eat, but we're sitting at a table and like pretty private. Like you're around other people, but I still feel okay about all that. But um, yeah, man, like I'll continue to wear a mask, and even if I think I'm going to be immune for the next 3 to 6 months, I don't want to risk that shit. Like
I
I
don't
don't
want
want
it
to I
again.
don't want it that again. Yeah, at all. Like even if now I go, great, I got it. I have my 3 boosters. I'm immune for 3 to 6 months. I'm gonna go out and just fucking raw dog it everywhere. I'm not masking. I'm like I could do that, but like that's definitely not what I'm going to do. Like we have a flight next weekend where do I want to wear a mask for a fucking 8-hour flight to Croatia? No, but like I'm going to. It's just like, even though I think I'm fine because I
Well,
just
especially when
had
other people
COVID.
aren't. Right.
I know, and we might be sitting with someone else in our row, right? Like that could just be raw dogging it, and I'm like, I don't I don't want that. Like it's
Yeah.
such a weird time where you like have anxiety just to go to places where there are other people, and you might have to sit near them, and it's like I don't know if that's ever gonna go away, but I'm like, do I ever want to sit beside a stranger without a mask ever again? It's like yeah, I because I don't want to have to wear a mask, but then I also am like, I feel like for the rest of time, unless we do get a vaccine that kind of protects you from every variant and kind of eliminates this thing completely for the most part, other than you like a flu shot, you might get it, but um, it's wild, dude. Like it was not fun, and part of me is like, I guess it was good that I lasted 2.5 years, but then also like I guess I could have got it out of the way before, but then this could have been the second time I caught it, right? Like we have friends
Or it
who
could have been worse if you only
uh
had one of the shots.
yeah, so we have friends and I don't, again, I feel comfortable talking about me and Derek and stuff like that, but I'm not gonna talk about other people. But we've had friends who have gotten it a second time, right? And
Well,
like
especially if you have
that,
younger kids as well. Like I saw my friend Peter recently at an outdoor event for his son Benjamin's first birthday, and I was talking to somebody else who, like they couldn't avoid it because they had to take their kids to daycare, and then when they
you know,
bring their
or their
kids
kids go to
home,
school, right? Like
they had it.
schools are open, so it's just like, yeah, it's I don't know. Yeah, you just got to deal with it, man. So do your best, and I'm excited for this vacation, but like I also don't want to wear a mask the whole time. But I guess I'll wear it in certain, going into certain places and different things like that. And we're worried because, like, again, our wedding too, like, we don't want anyone at our wedding to get it or before they're traveling. Like, Nevis's grandma's coming who's older, and we want to make sure she's safe and things like that. So, back to your point of like, I guess the silver lining is like getting it out of the way now. Like,
Your
it's
immune
almost
system will be
like,
a little bit stronger going
yeah,
to and probably back from.
yeah, like I should be good for the whole trip, right? Like, but that was me knocking on wood, everyone. But yeah, man, I don't
That
know.
was
It was
COVID
a
saying you're good for 6 months.
I hope so, dude. So, anyways, that's the end of the COVID story in the Mattchelor Party.
And
So,
that's where we were
um
for the last month and
yeah,
a
so
bit.
we
Not
just
really mysterious or.
no, Eric rested. We were planning on doing things, but then like I got COVID and then we had to take another break. So that's why, you're just getting your Top Gun Maverick review now. You're just getting your Stranger Things 4 review now, which like lets us digest and sit on things a little longer, which is nice, and lets us kind of talk about them in a spoilery fashion because enough people have had a chance to kind of see them at this point that we can kind of just have a conversation about them, which is kind of fun. But
And we're coming
um
back as well in the sense of like we'll have a review for the first 2 episodes of Miss Marvel
yeah,
being released when the embargo lifts on June 7th. So,
yeah.
like we're slowly not only kind of catching up, but we also have stuff that will be released that coincides with its actual release date or when the embargo has lifted.
Yeah, we'll have Lightyear and Spiderhead and hopefully Cha Cha Real Smooth. So
And
that'll
the
be
French vanilla iced coffee.
from Tim Biebs, yeah,
Yeah.
from
We
our
got to
boy.
review that. That's got to be its own
Oh, on the
review.
next episode or yeah, maybe we'll do our own thing. I'm definitely trying it on Monday.
I am too.
Because which really it'll probably taste the same as any other vanilla iced coffee that
Oh, it'll
anyone's ever
taste like
had.
shit.
I just need that. I need that cup that says Biebs Brew on it. But bless you. But yeah, man, that's my COVID story. I watched a lot of TV and hockey and movies. I tried to work doing it during it, which was just the worst idea ever. And
Well, when
like
I was sick as well, your leaves were out of because there was a lot of game sevens
yeah,
that weekend where they were kind of
they lost over that
where
Easter weekend.
yeah,
Yeah,
because so did Kyle's team, the
Bruins. Yeah,
Boston Bruins, and
yeah.
so it was funny, like just thinking like that one weekend, how many game sevens were there?
The first round of the NHL playoffs had like a ton of them, like one of the most evers, and then
So you had COVID and the Leafs lost, which is like
just within a span of 2 weeks, which is just like, oh, and that was the other thing that's the other reason why we weren't recording much, because the Leafs were in the playoffs, which meant every other night there was a hockey game. So Eric and I have to record usually on the evenings or weekends because I have a day job. And then the Leafs were playing every other night, and that was my priority. So it was like, I can't record. The Leafs are playing.
I just
So
want to
like,
see you like after a Leafs game when like they've lost, because when Boston lost game 7,
yeah.
he literally curled up into a
Oh,
ball on
I
the
have,
ground. But I
yeah.
want to see you like burning yourself with like
It's
candle
just
wax or
the
something like
worst,
that. Like,
dude. I just don't even know what I get the most energetic and animated that you've probably ever seen me, because I'm a pretty mellow guy, but like certain things get me going, and the Leafs do. And I just lose my shit during playoff games, and I've become like apathetic a little bit when it comes to them like losing, because it happens every year.
and you always say
So
that you're done, but yet you come back. Like, was your dad watching this
so
year's
my
season?
dad was more I'm done than I am. I always go like I'm close, but I never commit, right? Like I
Right.
always go like, why do I keep doing this to myself? But um my dad last season, when they lost to Montreal, because they were up 3-1 in the series. You need to win 4 games to advance, and they lost the next 3 and then got eliminated by the worst team that made the playoffs. Montreal did go on to make the Stanley Cup final and lose, but still, this year felt like a little bit better, because like Tampa Bay has won the last 2 Stanley Cups, and we lost to them in a very tight 7-game series. So we brought them right to the end, and we lost to Tampa Bay, who has won the last 2 years. So it didn't feel as like shitty, but it still feels shitty because it's the same result every year. And like, I'm not like, they have a good team. So it's just like they need to get over that hump somehow. But like,
And
yeah, it's,
the Leafs have good players right now as well,
they're
right? Like
great.
Austin
Yeah, they do.
Matthews is
Matthews,
like,
the one of the best players in the NHL, like
yeah.
probably the top 5 for sure, and in the whole league. So that was my priority. Was like I wasn't watching a lot of movies, and I was just watching hockey. So like there wasn't much to talk about other than some trailers that we were going to talk about, like Avatar. We've missed so much, which we'll get into in a sec. But
The Way
um,
of Water.
yeah, there is so much that we missed, and
And I guess, like, to your point with like your dad though as well, like your dad's in his 60s, right? So
yeah,
like he's had more heartache
oh
over
yeah.
the decades of them where you're
He was
still
alive when they
young and
won.
naive.
He was 9 years old or whatever the last time they won the Stanley Cup.
Oh, so he's at
And
least had
yeah, but
some
do you remember
experience.
any? I don't remember much
No.
from when I was 9, right? Like
I remember
it,
this guy named Ben who
yeah,
saved me once.
yeah. My dad's like, I barely remember that, right? Like
Yeah.
imagine being my dad's age in his 60s, and he's really, when he was a kid is the last time they won. So it's just like really, if anything, I just want them to win one for him more than me. But like, it's just sports are a weird thing, man. But like, there's nothing quite like it if you get really invested in a team, and I like that thrill, right? Like, even though you feel like you're part of it, or you feel like it's just yours or something, even though there's millions of people who are Leaf fans, but um, and they all suffer just like I do. But yeah, man, there's nothing quite like it. And I've always been a sports guy, and like I've this fine weird line of being a jock and a nerd, right? I've always leaned more nerd, but like I played hockey and loved a lot of different sports, and I could ride that fine line between, the jocks and the geeks even in high school, but then found myself like I don't I'm more on
You
the geek side.
cosplayed as a jock strap.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's all I wore. Anyways, what did I watch
But
or
also, we
what?
should mention. I mean, again, I'm not a hockey person or sports fan in general, but I mean, even the loss of Guy Lafleur, right,
Yeah,
who passed away, was kind of a big deal in the 1970s. Like I was talking to my mom about it, and she's not a sports
huge.
person,
He's
but
one of
she
the biggest.
remembers being kind of a fan because of him
Yeah,
of the Habs.
absolutely, man. He's one of the greatest of all time, and yeah, that happened recently, and hockey's such a Canadian thing too, right? So it's just like it's a weird thing that like Americans don't really care about. There are people who love hockey in the States. The Rangers have made it pretty far, and they're huge, and a lot of Rangers fans. And Edmonton's still in the playoffs, so that's the one Canadian team left. They have the best player in the league, Connor McDavid. So a lot of people cheering for them. Tampa's still in it. They're playing the Rangers. Colorado. What's funny about Colorado, Edmonton, they're playing each other in the Western Conference Final. Um, there's 2 former Leaf players that people really like. Nazem Kadri is on the Colorado Avalanche, and Zach Hyman is on the Edmonton Oilers. So it's just a little bit of a pain for Leafs fans. One of those guys is going to make it to the Stanley Cup final, which I'm always part of that club that I want to see them succeed. You know, they got away from the cursed Maple Leafs. Let them win a Stanley Cup. Like, I'm all
And it's
for
almost kind
that.
of like
Like,
vicariously they kind of are winning. They've been a part of the dynasty that you
yeah.
love so much
So
that they are
yeah,
still winning in their own way.
totally. And you cheer for them because you like them when they were Leafs. So I'm all for Nazem Kadri or Zach Hyman winning a Stanley Cup. So I'm all for that. So I'm still watching hockey every night. Like, I throw it on. There's one game a night. Usually there's a game starting in, the Edmonton, Colorado game starting in as we're recording this.
What game are they on?
They're in game 3 of the Western Conference Final. Colorado is up 2-0. So Edmonton really needs to win tonight, but we shall see. All right, moving on from sports and COVID. Eric, there's probably a metric shit ton of stuff we've been watching or not over the last month or so. I don't know if you want me to kick it off. I can talk about Lord of the Rings. I can talk about the
Yeah, let's
boys.
talk about Lord of the Rings because
Yeah.
I mean we've talked. I mean when we say let's talk about it, we have talked about it, but in terms of doing this show, but quickly, I just want one more thing with this. One more thing, Columbo style with the sports, and just one more thing. Are you? Because I noticed that you were talking. I mean, you were talking to Kyle and Ryan quite a bit, and this a lot of this stuff does go over my head. But
About hockey, yeah.
yeah, are you going to join a fantasy league next
Oh, I
year
might.
or rejoin?
I won your brother's fantasy league the first year that I was in it. And then the next year I kind of fell off and I called my team the auto champions or whatever because I won the year before. So I just let the computer pick my team the whole year and I came in last place. Um, and then I dropped out. So then they convinced me to come back. So I probably will come back next year. So maybe I'll give updates on the podcast of how I'm doing on that or let people pick my team with me. Okay, let's talk about Lord of the Rings. So
It's like a hockey team.
it's
The
basically
Fellowship.
yeah, so over the span that we were off from, the Moonfall episode up until now, and before I got COVID, so that like 3-week span I was fine. Cinesphere, which if you're not from the Toronto area, Cinesphere is this basically giant golf ball looking thing that's the first ever permanent IMAX theater ever in the world. IMAX being a Canadian company, invented here and created here. The Cinesphere is a independent theater owned by the Ontario government and IMAX that runs usually second run IMAX movies, as well as some other they play movies that are non IMAX there once in a while. So it's great for stuff that you missed in IMAX or had played IMAX years ago and you just kind of want to check it out again. They always bring back like the IMAX versions of movies, and they have both a film projector and a laser IMAX digital projector. So it's like one of the best IMAX theaters, at least in Ontario, if not on the planet. It's probably equally as big as the Scotiabank. The seats are worse. They are not comfortable at all, which is the one downfall to that theater.
Especially when you're watching a movie that's like
Yeah,
over 3 hours,
I made it
basically.
okay, but like you got to find the right spot to sit, especially for me who's like a little anxious sitting in the middle of IMAX rows. They got to put, here's the thing, IMAX got to put a walkway in the middle of the seats. You know what I'm saying? Like if you just take out one row of seats in each or one seat in each
Okay,
row
yeah, I know what you're
and
saying.
then
Yeah.
just put an aisle in the middle because I
So
feel
you
like
have 3 aisles, so you have more
yes,
like
2
more
on the
flow,
sides and
right?
1 in
Less
the middle,
congestion
and then that
traffic-wise.
way you can get in and out easier, and I can have an aisle seat in the middle of the theater, which is the best. There's only a couple of places that do that, but this doesn't, so I kind of have to sit on the side. But anyways, back to Lord of the Rings. So,
We
if you
saw First Man there as well. Like
we did.
we sat next to Denny
Tiff
Villeneuve.
always does like a screening per year. We saw First Man there. I went and saw Dunkirk there and saw Chris Nolan Q&A during Tiff
You mean
one
the
year.
savior of cinema.
Yeah. I've also I've seen tons of stuff there. I love seeing movies there. Random things like I remember seeing Die Hard and they played which is not an IMAX movie, but then before it they played the Tenet 65 millimeter IMAX film version of the prologue before Die Hard, which was random and I wasn't expecting it. And yeah, it's just an awesome IMAX theater. And so they were playing the recent IMAX versions of the Lord of the Rings
Theatrical
trilogy.
cuts.
Theatrical cuts. They're the re-releases they did during COVID. So they were only released in 2021, I believe. And they're based off the 4K versions, the remasters that they did for 4K. So they also remastered it for IMAX and digitally enhanced them for that, and had the recolor coding that they did that Peter Jackson supervised. And so if you guys have listened or read my stuff or have known me since, I've been doing this, which is since I was in college, a long ass time ago at this point, I've always had this there's a couple things that are like start off as like serious idiot younger Matt as a movie fan trying to be like, contrarian or
Provocative.
provocative of going like, I fucking hate those movies suck. And it
You and
wasn't
Lars von Trier,
Lord of the
provocateurs.
Rings wasn't original. I was just like, it's been poked fun at in fucking Clerks and everything.
I knew
Like,
that was coming.
it's just like, well, I'm just saying, like, it's
Well,
not
the Lord,
it's not an
Lord of the Rings is just walking.
is just
right?
walking,
Yeah.
right? And that was younger Matt was like, they're boring ass movies. I don't want to watch them. Or I tried watching Fellowship and I was bored out of my mind, and I will never watch Lord of the Rings. And that was my mentality for a long time. As you get older, that stuff, we'll talk about Avatar in a little bit. And I had the same opinion on Avatar when I was younger in college, like that it was terrible and everyone is overrated and garbage. As you get older, you kind of rethink those things and you go, okay, I was just being a little bit of an asshole and just an idiot, and like that's not actually what I think about them. But I kind of committed to the bit of like, I don't like Lord of the Rings and I'm never
Or
watching
fantasy
them.
movies
Or
in
fantasy.
general.
But there are things like I saw the first Hobbit movie and I saw half of the second Hobbit movie just because like they were in theaters, and at that point I'm like, I'll give them a shot. Didn't really care. But and the 48 frames per second I was curious about, and it's awful. So anyways, I get older and everyone's like, you gotta finally fucking watch these movies. And my buddy Mike Muntz, who's a huge fan of Lord of the Rings, programmed them for the Roerbeck International Film Festival, which Nevis did for my birthday this year. And he programmed the 3 movies, and I committed that this year I will watch all those movies that people programmed for me. It's going very slowly, but I will get through them. So when the Cinesphere thing popped up, I was like, oh, what a perfect way to like watch these movies for the first time, is like see them in theaters on an IMAX screen.
There's no other distractions.
I sit down, I fucking watch them, give them a fair shot. Sorry, COVID cough will come through. And they were the remastered 4K like new transfers of them. So I'm like, all right, I'm fucking doing it. And everyone told me to watch the theatrical because they're like, if you already are skeptical of these movies, don't watch the extended because it's too much for a new fan or whatever. So I went 3 weekends in a row, started with Fellowship. I'd seen Fellowship before, like I think 3 or 4 years ago. I actually watched it on digital, like in my bed or something. I watched it like an afternoon, and when you're at home, I like half paying attention. I finally got through it, but I was like, I don't care. I don't need to watch the other 2. And seeing it on the big screen, focused on it, Nevis came with me in a pretty packed theater that were obviously mostly hardcore fans of Lord of the Rings. I had a fucking blast with it. Like I thought it was great with Fellowship, the first one. And it does start slow. It takes a little while. You get into the Shire. My joke was I never made it out of the Shire, right? Like my whole thing was like, I can never make it out of the Shire.
Why would you want to leave?
Because I just fall asleep before they leave the Shire, right? Like that was my bit. Like I fell asleep before Gandalf and Frodo left the Shire. So I finally got through the Shire, finally focused on the characters and the cinematography and the action and the CG and special effects and everything. And I totally see why people think that these are some of the best movies ever made and one of the best trilogies ever made. And I had a really good time watching Fellowship and actually falling in love with these characters and actually paying attention. What do you know? Paying attention helps. It really, really does help. So
should be your new slogan.
It really does. And I'm just bad at watching shit at home. Like I'm so much better when I go to the theater. it's like a thing triggers in my brain that, Matt, you are committed to this fucking thing. You're not looking at your phone. You might go to the bathroom 4 times, but like you'll get it. And I did go to the bathroom probably 3 or 4 times because
But
there are
that's not
long
you
like this movies.
procrastinating, where like there's
Sometimes it
more.
is in certain movies. I leave and just I'm like I need a break, but not in this. It wasn't. And I really liked it, man. Like Viggo Mortensen as Aragorn and then the creation of the Fellowship. Like I found myself weirdly being like, fuck yeah, like I like fist pumping like when that score comes in, the Howard Shore score.
Oh, Howard
And
Shore, man,
he
so
crushes it.
underrated.
Yeah, he crushes it. And like when they're building the Fellowship and you're like, I leaned over to Nevis. I'm like, it's the Fellowship. They're building it. And like, and it's just
Had
like,
Neva seen these
yeah,
before?
she loves them.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So, uh, I found myself getting really hyped for them building the Fellowship and learning about Sauron and fucking the Ring and fucking little gremlin dude and Gollum and like
You love Token.
I was all in, dude. So like the first one had a blast. Jump in if you have anything to say about these, or I'll just
Oh,
keep
I think
going.
the first one out of the three is my favorite, especially like the further I've gotten away from it, and like even watching the Hobbit movies, and like I like I loved all three, and I still do. I even like the second one, which is the weakest of the three trilogy of the Peter Jackson trilogy. But with that first movie, it it is, to your point, a lot of setup and backstory and character development in terms of who you'll be following throughout the rest of the journey. But there is something that's one. It's a World War I allegory, and where that's coming from, where this group of people set out to put their own lives on the line to save the world, basically, and the camaraderie that kind of develops over the time, and how earnest it is in moments, and especially when it comes to when characters meet their demise, or when you think characters are going to die, and when they come back, and like even just thinking like where Peter Jackson was in his career. Like you can tell that those three movies, he is completely and utterly obsessed and passionate about telling this story. And then you don't have that with the Hobbit films, and a lot of the Hobbit movies are also, there is obviously a lot of makeup and practical in camera effects, but there's even more so in this film. And this was that, I mean, I've talked about this on the regular show and even with Sam Raimi, where like you had Sam Raimi and Peter Jackson, these like schlocky B movie directors from
Yeah,
the 1980s, getting these huge properties to make with both Lord of the Rings and Spider-Man,
and then
respectively.
crushing it.
Yeah, and still incorporating their style,
Personal,
and
yeah.
yeah, and it completely coming through, and the way that like Peter Jackson was able to make the movies that he wanted to, and as weird as they are and as fun as they are. And yeah, that first movie, like the scene with Sean Bean dying, spoiler alert, it is really
Just him being
emotional.
in it is he's a human spoiler.
Yeah, but like his
Yeah,
arc is, I think,
it's
amazing in
great.
terms
Yeah,
of like him kind of finding redemption after wanting to take the ring. But even just the casting, like I love like someone like Ian Holm as
yeah.
Bilbo. Like I think it's like just perfect. And then
The
like
cast is just dynamite,
and
for
even
sure.
kind of the comparisons to Star Wars with like the prestigious nature of it, like Ian McKellen getting an Oscar nomination the way that
For
like Alec
Gandalf,
Guinness
yeah.
did for A New Hope. Like there was that time where it was like, okay, these kind of movies can be looked upon as you
High
know
art.
yeah, exactly. And like they can get Oscar nominations, like A Beautiful Mind and The Artist, and yet like we're still talking about Lord of the Rings, and nobody talks about The Artist or A
Oh,
Beautiful Mind
totally.
or any
Yeah.
of those
I mean,
movies.
with all three of them getting Best Picture nominations too,
Yeah,
right? And just cleaning
and
up
then The
with
Return of the King
nominations, winning.
right.
Yeah, is wild. And yeah, like you mentioned, like just it's such a perfect story of like these timid fucking, what are they called, hobbits, that he gets entrusted with this thing where he has to be the one, the savior, and go through. And it's just like the camaraderie between um him and Samwise and and then all the different kind of factions that come in, and each having, like, that's what's so great about the fellowship of having, you have the representative from the elf and the dwarves and the wizard with Gandalf, and like it's just it's so cool. And I'm like, I don't think I'm not like a Lord of the Rings fan now, but like it made me understand why people are. Like I still think I have that weird disconnect with fantasy stuff, and I weirdly like things like Legend of Zelda, like the video game, and watching Lord of the Rings, I'm like, man, if we got a Legend of Zelda series on the scale of like Lord of the Rings, that would be my jam, because I like the source material, and I know the lore, and I know like the villain and stuff like that, and I or the different factions, because it's very similar. I would be all in on that. But then I found myself really invested in this story. So then a week later, I come back for Two Towers. And and the other thing I will say is we talked about this, in our Dune review and things like that, where Lord of the Rings, very much one story, but each chapter, Fellowship, Two Towers, and Return of the King, still feel like their own movies. Like they still feel like they have a beginning, a middle, and an end, even though they are part of an overarching narrative between all that trilogy. Like it's telling one story of Frodo needing to go and destroy this ring and save Middle Earth. And like, but in that, each one has a smaller villain or a thing that they need to accomplish, right? Like there is still an end goal in that certain movie, whether it's the Two Towers, having to destroy them at the there, and in Return of the King, it all coming together. And like I feel like each movie has its own arc, and where they leave characters is really interesting. So Two Towers, something we talked about even on our Stranger Things 4 review, does that thing which a lot of middle movies in a trilogy will do, or in a series eventually has to do this to their characters. It's like, okay, everyone came together, now we have to separate them all, and everyone has their own kind of plot for the second movie, or that ultimately will then bring them back for the finale for them to all be together again. So I found myself with Two Towers that um I liked it, but I really felt the length, and I really felt like it took a very long time to ultimately get to that final act, which does kick a lot of ass. I think the Battle of Helm's Deep is the thing people really love in the second one, in Two Towers. But I just felt like that was the movie where the joke in my head came back of like, this is a lot of walking and not a lot's happening, and it's taking a long time to get to where they need to go. And I felt like not a lot of shit happened in that second movie for me to feel like it was worthwhile. So like I still ultimately liked it, and I think that final act does kick a lot of ass, but I felt like when you take those characters and separate them all again, I found myself less interested. You get a lot more Gollum, you get I didn't like the Gandalf thing of like him dying in the first one and then immediately coming back. Mind you, the opening of Two Towers, where you see like the result of Gandalf falling into that pit and fighting
with the
that
bog rock.
yeah, I think that was dope looking. um but I
I like
don't
that creature too. Like he's
So do
just
I, but like I don't like the immediate like, oh, Gandalf's not dead, or he's now Gandalf the White instead of
yeah, he
Gandalf
just
the
got a new
Gray.
wardrobe.
Yeah, like it's just like, all right, you could have. I think that would have been better. And I'm rewriting Lord of the Rings because obviously that's probably what's in the Tolkien books. But like, um, I would have loved to see Gandalf gone for the second movie and come back in the third. I feel like that would have been way more impactful for me, of Gandalf's return. And then immediately at the start of the second movie, he's fine. And like, so I found like I nitpick things here and there. I like the tree guys. I know you don't really like.
I don't like them because I feel like that's one of the subplots or strands with Marion and Pippin that
Yeah.
it really does
Okay.
slow the
I
pace
agree with
of
that.
the like I don't mind where it ultimately leads, and again
Yeah.
like the the,
I
the
like the
idea
look
of
of them.
self-sacrifice, for the greater good, but it's just again the walking and talking thing, and to have
Yeah.
Jonathan Rhys Davies also voice the main Treebeard, I believe.
Yeah,
It just kind of is like that's where I do feel the length, and that's
I
where I'm
agree.
kind of like, okay, this
I
is
like
really
the
taking me
design
out
of
of
them,
it.
and I like a little bit that they do, but
I like that
I
Gandalf
totally,
sleeps with his eyes open.
yeah, that's creepy. It's creepy. So, anyways, oh God, here it comes.
And the lumbus
Um,
bread. I've like I want to know what that was that they made that out of
yeah,
on set.
I'm sure we can find out. So and the Gollum stuff, I think like you don't get his
Oh
backstory
yeah.
until the beginning of 3, right? Is that when it comes in, or is it in 2?
No,
You get a
one, you only get glimpses of him because he
yeah,
wasn't even fully finished design wise at
yeah.
that point. Two is when he
He's
becomes
very
the
heavily
character.
involved. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's when he teams up with Frodo and Sam, and he starts to kind of lead them to the spider cave and stuff like that
Yeah.
in
And
part
then in
three. But
3 you get his backstory at the beginning, right?
that's the other thing I'm not. I don't mind Andy Serkis's performances, but I've talked about this with, like, again, going back to Spider-Man, the multiple personality thing. I just kind of
Right.
find like that's a little bit
Smeagol
grating.
and yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah. I thought it was fine. Like I Gollum whatever.
It's not
Uh,
you know, it's I'm
because
like,
it's a fantasy thing, I guess,
yeah,
is like kind of where I give it a pass a little bit, but like
it's not a deal breaker,
and
you
then I
know.
loved Return of the King, and I feel like because it was so action packed and it was the culmination of the 3 movies, like I think that's why it was ultimately my favorite. I feel like its pacing was relentless, and I feel like the action sequences were fantastic. And you know, it's a class. I think that's why I love Avengers Endgame and why I like, you know, I like the big culmination action packed movie where everything comes together and the payoffs are there and everything you've been building up to and it sticks the landing. And I feel like Return of the King very much does that. And I absolutely adored Return of the King because I just felt like every character beat worked, everything
Well,
felt
just
pretty.
Sam, man,
Yeah,
like dragging Frodo up the
yeah.
mountain into
It's
Mordor,
very
like,
earned, right? Like their
yeah.
friendship is very earned throughout those 3 movies and you really kind of buy into it. Um and we talked about homoerotic subtext in Top Gun. I'm like I feel like there's a lot here too where like
Well, even the
even
bedroom scene at the end when they
yeah.
all like
The
the
85
ending that,
endings is
yeah.
like really funny. Like I actually started laughing after like the 3rd one and then you get like 4 more. But yeah, I definitely took that either Frodo loved Sam and then when Sam says he loves the bartender at the bar and then has a family with her, like Frodo's so heartbroken he goes off with the elves and the and Gandalf because Sam, the love of his life, just says like, no, I actually love um this waitress or
Well,
bartender.
it's also again, it's another World War One analogy
Yeah,
where
sure.
like a lot of the people that didn't make it, you know, or that did make it even, you know, still have the scars from
Totally.
the past, and they're always going to have to carry that trauma with them.
Yeah.
And like even Frodo talks about, like, even though he's healed, there's still some dark
Something.
weight on him.
And they
The
go to
spider
like
sequence as well.
oh, the
Holy,
spider's awesome. Aragorn throughout like Viggo Mortensen, I think is the unsung hero, although I
yeah,
don't know because I think he maybe people really loved him in these movies, but like I think he fucking rules in all 3 of these movies.
Strider.
Yeah, he's fucking awesome. I would say Legolas, like didn't see the hype there. Like I found like
I don't
that
love him, but
character
I
to
do
be like
like the look
fine.
of Legolas, and
I
like that again. Like, it's such an interesting. Like, again, I don't have a lot of nostalgia for the early 2000s, but like you look at that cast, and it is really fascinating to see where all of them
Kate
are
Blanchett.
now, because you have, you know, someone like Christopher Lee who's passed away, but at that time he was doing both the Star Wars prequels and Lord of the Rings. You
All
had
right,
Hugo Weaving
Dooku,
who was doing the Matrix
Matrix,
sequels
and
and
this. Yeah.
this, and then you know, you had people like Viggo Mortensen who would go on to work with David Cronenberg right after this, and then you know, you had people that were kind of already established or were child actors like Sean Ashton and Elijah Wood. And you know, it's just really an interesting period of time for a lot of these actors. And even like, you know, Kate Blanchett, who has a very minimalist performance, like it's really the first movie is Galadriel. she does have this kind of looming presence
over the
throughout the
whole movie.
journey,
Yeah.
and then Gimli being this weird sex pervert wanting her hair. Like, like there's a lot of really like weird, interesting stuff in there that is also, again, like it's more subversive than you would expect it to be for kind of a fantasy story. And
Yeah.
yeah, and like having also seen the Ralph Bakshi animated film that really kind of only incorporates the first two movies, like that does kind of feel like, okay, well, we'll never get to see the part two of that and what
Yeah.
have you. But yeah,
Liv
I
Tyler as well.
Liv
Yeah.
Tyler's fine. I think like the elves in general don't really do
Yeah,
much
I
for
agree.
me. It's everybody else I like, and
Dominic Monaghan, who I always love because of Lost, and he
yeah.
did Lost right after
Yeah,
this,
and
right?
again,
Yeah.
like just looking at this as like a time capsule of where everybody was while making, these movies. It's just really fascinating to think back, like, oh, like this was, I think, the moment to make this film, because even though there is some CGI that it has dated, like the giant
It
troll and
looks
things,
really good though. Like
it's still better than most. But I don't think it would look like, you look at The Hobbit, and a lot of that stuff already feels and looks
but it
dated in
looks way worse
comparison.
than Lord of the Rings, I think, because
Exactly.
of like the high frame rate and the super HD cameras and some like there's something about shooting this on film and just like and the CG weirdly to me, dude, like I thought of Jurassic Park while I was watching this, where I'm like, I'm shocked that 20 plus years later now, right? Or 20 years almost exactly, right?
Yeah.
20 years later that this holds up as well as it does. I agree with you that there are certain things here and there that just don't, you can tell it's very early in the fully CG character kind of thing, but Gollum looks pretty good. Like the
The
tree,
orcs are amazing.
the
Like
orcs look
that
incredible
makeup.
because it's mostly practical, right? Like they look fantastic. And that mix of practical and CG, I think, is the combo, dude. And that's what I want to see more from movies today is like you use CG to almost enhance things or create characters that you couldn't through makeup and stuff like that. And I think that's why like even James Gunn has succeeded in Guardians because of all the practical effects on a lot of the aliens and different people that he has in those movies. And even modern Star Wars has gotten away from CG, and even in something like Obi-Wan that's on right now, like they're using a lot of practical makeup and puppets and things like that, which both leads to, the charm of it because it's got that kind of like janky charm of the original Star Wars movies. But then like in this, I just feel like the orcs look incredible. A lot of the CG holds up to me like really, really well. And that's one thing that I was surprised by because I was worried going to watch these 20 years later that shit wouldn't hold up. And I found myself like, you guys, everyone who listens know how much I love Jurassic Park, and I feel like that first Jurassic Park movie still looks better than like at least 80% of the movies that come out today. Like the CG in that movie, which is just, I can't even believe that. I feel like they've secretly like updated it slightly every year since it came out or something, so it still looks good. But anyways, yeah, Lord of the Rings, all three movies, really had a great time. I totally understand why people love them. I don't necessarily love them. I
But you have a new appreciation and respect
appreciation.
for them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I gave Return of the King a 4.5. I gave Fellowship a 4. I gave Two Towers a 3, I think. So like I still really enjoyed all three of them, especially as a whole, and it even made me go, am I going to watch the Hobbit movies? And I was like, no, I'm not.
No, don't
I'm
do
not
it,
going
Matt.
to. So
I don't even have an interest in watching the Lord of the Rings Amazon series. Like I will gladly throw on the Lord of the Rings movies, as like even a seasonal thing, because like when I first saw them was when they were being released, and like it was like a family thing where like the Whippy AMC complex, when it was
yeah.
AMC, has a Denny's there, and we would all go to Denny's and then go to the Lord of the Rings movie.
Remember the Shire sausage after the Hobbit?
Yeah, and so like with that, like it kind of became like this holiday kind of association with Lord of the Rings, or even with some of the Harry Potter movies when they were being released in like the fall or winter months. um but yeah, it's one of those things where like you talk to people that truly love it. Like I remember when we had like a friend of ours who we haven't talked to in a while, but Devin Garabedian, who
Yeah.
is a huge Lord of the Rings fan.
Thank you.
um
Got another drink.
Nice.
This
What is it?
I'm having a Jose Cuervo Playa Mar hard seltzer mango. That's what I'm gonna go
Nice.
with. So
But yeah,
some
it's just
tequila.
like one of those things where it's like I do feel there is a timeless quality to
Yeah,
those movies, even though like it was using the effects of the early
of the
2000s and
time.
things like that. And again, going back to like casting, like thinking Orlando Bloom at that time was one of the biggest movie stars with the Pirates films and
Yeah,
Kingdom of Heaven and Black Hawk Down and stuff like that. And now like you look at him, he's just basically Mr. Katy Perry. So
true.
yeah, like it's just like it's just interesting as like a time capsule as well for like our age group.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. And it's interesting that those Hobbit movies, even bringing back a lot of the cast, like just did not work. And
It's because they spread it so thin. Like The
yeah,
Hobbit is like this.
you should have just
There's
made one movie, right? And
yeah,
then like,
two at the most, but like it was supposed to only be two movies, and then like the behind the scenes of that I think is more interesting than the movies because remember Guillermo del Toro was supposed to direct those films, but they
yeah,
kept getting delayed because of the strike in New Zealand, the film workers
right.
strikes, and so like it
Peter
kept getting.
Jackson just came back and did them, right?
Yeah, and you can tell Peter Jackson like his approach to it, even though he was very strategic and organized in how he structured, shooting them. They're just it was an obligation at that point. Like even the way he talks about them now, the Hobbit movies, he almost like apologizes for making them because like he realizes that there's no there like the passion he had for the Lord of the Rings is not there in the Hobbit,
Yeah,
and
these
the
were
Hobbit.
mostly just a cash grab, right?
Yeah, and even like with like the
Or-
moments that work in the Hobbit, like I do like Schmog, but yeah, it just kind of feels like it is spreading itself way too thin, and there's really not a lot there. The CGI is terrible. You mentioned the 48 frames per
Oh
second thing
God, you
being
saw that in 48, right?
yeah, yeah, and it looks like I mean like a lot of people compared it to like watching like a daytime soap opera or like sports thing, and it's worse when you have practical
Yeah.
or real sets
You
and like
really can
everything looks
tell that it's like,
artificial.
yeah, you really can tell when it's that hyper clear and
Yeah, and
smooth.
the
It's
makeup
like
too. Like
it's like
it looks like something you'd watch on BBC in like the
yeah,
1970s.
agreed. Or you're watching like a stage show, like a
Yeah.
high school production of Lord of the Rings, and
Starring
like
Gemma
uh,
Otterton.
so I'm curious about the Rings of Power. I didn't love the trailer. I thought like I just don't know if you can do like the CG in that looked worse than in the movies, and that's both because this is TV, it's not a movie, but Amazon is dumping millions of dollars into this. Um, I don't know, man. Like I'll
The
give
only
like
thing I'm excited about with the power is it
the Rings of
the
Power.
Rings of Power, which would be a better title for a Shang-Chi sequel,
Sure, yeah.
is that Morphet Clark of Saint Maud is playing
Yeah.
Gladriel, and that's
And
about
I
it.
think Olivia Cook is in the Game of Thrones prequel, right?
House of Dragons, right?
Yeah, okay.
See,
Yeah.
that's the other thing where it's all gonna get kind of
Yeah.
like fuzzy. But again, like you also came late to Game of Thrones, but you
Yeah.
did watch it all, and even though
The last couple
Game of
seasons.
Thrones was a wet fart of a final couple seasons, you could understand more why people liked it when you
Totally.
started getting into
I
it.
actually really loved Game of Thrones up until those final seasons. Like I actually was really into that. And I will watch that prequel just because I saw that trailer and I'm like, God damn it, yeah, I'm in. I will
Well, it
give
has
this
your
a
favorite
shot.
Morbius actor in
Um
it, Matt Smith.
yeah, yeah. Oh God, let's talk about that.
Fuck no. Jared Leto took the one thing we had away from us, which was the humor, and now we
Yeah,
don't even have that.
good lord. One thing I'll let you jump in, Eric, soon, but
Yep.
before we see what you've been watching or listening, not watch or just watching. I watched the first 3 episodes of The Boys season 3. I have seen 5 total. I'll talk about them over the next couple weeks, but just quickly, I know it's you haven't caught up with The Boys yet. I
I
don't
haven't
know if
even
it's like
watched it.
that's what I mean. Like, is it something that it just doesn't interest you, or just
No,
there's
I
too
just think
much
it's just
TV?
there's just too much
Yeah,
content, Matt.
yeah, that's totally fair. I just briefly wanted to touch on it because like it is one of my favorite shows on television. I think uh it is one of those shows that I don't think about that often.
Until it's on, right?
Yeah, and then you forget how fucking good it is. And it's just it's the perfect satire to I tweeted this, but to like American culture and superhero culture. Like I feel like it's just at the perfect time of so much going on in the United States and superhero fandom being at its absolute peak, that I feel like it is just one of the best shows on TV because it can kind of take down both of those things. And I just Anthony Starr, who is the lead as Homelander on the series, like is one of the most terrifying villains I've ever seen in a superhero property or just on TV in general. He plays such a great evil Superman that every episode he just looks like the most menacing. He looks like Bizarro Bradley Cooper. Like if Bradley Cooper was Superman, his Bizarro would be Anthony Starr's Homelander. And like it's just he's so menacing and fucked up and disturbed that
Loves milk.
he does love milk, you know that. Elizabeth Shue in that first season, there's some interesting stuff. And then just going on to even that reference is like I'm constantly shocked at what they one get away with in this show and two just do. And it can borderline on, when something uses this much violence or sexual content or cursing or anything, like it can borderline on juvenile, but I think it kind of surpasses that in the sense of like what we talked about with James Gunn's The Suicide Squad and that kind of trauma
Or
or just
super.
or super like that splatter kind of so graphic violent that like it just kind of both adds to the comedy and just the disturbing nature of the show. And the show is a comedy a lot of the times, but then touches on some
Well,
very
according to the
serious.
Emmys, it's a comedy.
Uh,
Or is it a drama,
See,
according to
that's the
the
thing.
Emmys?
It's so hard to kind of categorize it because I think of it as a satirical black comedy, but it has a lot of dramatic elements in it, and I feel like it's one of those satires that like it doesn't even have to do that much other than show you, what's going on in the US, but using superheroes as a way to kind of showcase that. And it's not even necessarily doing anything unique other than presenting it to you. But just presenting it to you through this lens just kind of is a reminder of how fucked up the United States is. And I just feel like using superheroes and them as kind of a way to take down celebrity culture and take down fandom and things like that, and toxic masculinity and sexual assault and racism. And I boggles my mind that Amazon is releasing this show because the way that they portray Vought, which is like this big evil conglomerate, is just kind of ironic that Amazon is the one putting out this show. And like I'm absolutely in love with it, and I feel like it is weirdly underrated. Like it is very kind of niche, I guess, in like superheroes are gigantic, but it is a show that's kind of poking fun at people who love superheroes and just superhero movies and that culture, as well as, a lot of shitty people in the United States, whether it's far right people, but then they also tackle the left. And there's like, it kind of doesn't really pull any punches to anyone. And I feel like it does a good job at not feeling like it's um, lazy in any of that kind of stuff or just kind of punching downward or any of that. And it's not necessarily even the smartest thing you've ever seen, but it's just so consistently good in who it's kind of poking fun at. And then on top of that, you have a story, just a very simple kind of superhero storyline of like this evil piece of shit who is the leader of essentially a real life Justice League. And he just secretly, you know, and it tackles, I think what's interesting about celebrity culture is like using superheroes for that, of like they do all these horrible things, but they look great to the public eye and all that kind of stuff. And
Well, it's
I
mass marketing, right?
yes, exactly. And it tackles marketing and PR and all that kind of stuff. And um it's one of the best shows on TV. And I feel like if you are a Marvel fan or a DC fan or and you haven't checked out The Boys, I highly, highly suggest it. And it's not for everyone. It is one of the most violent TV shows I've ever seen in my life. Like it is so graphic in some of the things that it depicts that I am constantly shocked, and I am not someone who like turns away or gets grossed out or
You've
is it.
seen a lot.
I've seen a lot, and like I don't usually, nothing really surprises me anymore. But I will say, like, at least once an episode or once every few episodes, something happens on The Boys where I'm like, I cannot believe they just showed that or they did that. And like a lot of it just ends up with people exploding and there's blood and guts everywhere, or like just the most extreme gore I've ever seen on someone's face or body or whatever. And then there's just completely like it's kind of got that Game of Thrones element where, because these are all original characters, right? Like
Anyone could
any,
die at
yeah,
any
at
time.
any moment. So that adds it's such a refreshing thing for a superhero thing, right? Because like if you're watching a
Because there is
Marvel,
mortality involved, right? Like it's not
yes,
like you have to wait for like 3 or 4 movies, and then maybe if the actor doesn't want to come back and reprise the role, they'll
they'll
kill them
drop them
off.
off a cliff and they'll come back for a prequel 4 movies down the line. But like it's in this, it's like someone you might think is going to be the biggest part of the show might die 4 episodes later. And just like the way that they satirize even certain superheroes, like Jensen Ackles is on this season and he's satirizing Captain America. And there was a
Soldier Boy, right?
yeah, he plays Soldier Boy, tell him. And or the way that there's a scene with a character that's satirizing Ant-Man called Termite. That was like, Eric, it was one of the most shocking things I've ever seen in my life. And like it continued in Homelander with Superman, like the Seven is the Justice League, and then the one, and then there's a whole Avengers version too. And like what I just mentioned is like anyone at any time could explode and die. And then you just have this whole other team of the boys, Carl Urban, who I just find is one of my favorite working actors, and I always forget that as well until I
Who
see
he's
him
in
pop
Lord of
up
the
in
Rings
things.
as well.
There he is. Yeah, I was thinking of that exact same thing. And like I love seeing Carl Urban pop up and stuff. Um, Jack Quaid is really great too. Like I really kind of
We
liked him
just saw in Scream.
in Scream, and I thought he was really really
Son
good.
of Dennis.
Yeah, son of Dennis. And I just feel like it's one of those shows that you even get invested in some of the smaller things that are going on, and the A plot is, you know, it changes season to season, obviously, but like Homelander has been that central figure, and I just feel like it picks up right where it left off and ends up being like one of the best shows on TV. And with that and Invincible on Amazon, like I find like they have two of the best adult superhero kind of shows, because Invincible's the same way, where Invincible's not satirizing per se. Like they do, you know, take inspiration from real superheroes and kind of make their own version of those. Um, Invincible's more of a serious. The Boys is very serious too, but it's straightforward. It is a superhero story. It's just an adult version of it, where this is just it's a satire through and through. And I feel like it does such a great job of taking down Fox News, big corporations, you know, both protests. And you know, there's they make fun of that Pepsi commercial with Kendall Jenner where she gave the cops a Pepsi, and like it's very obvious stuff. Like it's really just inserting one of the superheroes in it and just completely ripping that off, but then just showing you the absurdity of that. I think really works in something like this. So yeah, I'm loving The Boys season 3, and I'll kind of each episode I'll kind of come back and let people know how I'm feeling. But I really think you should check it out, dude. I know like there's so much TV, but I know you were kind of a Supernatural boy, right? And this is
Yeah, I really like Jensen Ackles quite a bit as
Eric
Dean
Kripke.
Winchester. Yeah, and so if you go on YouTube, I'm sure there's like a super cut of Jensen Ackles saying Sammy.
Oh yeah.
He's a good yeller, Sammy. Yeah, I mean like what you're I think probably like that comparison to Invincible, like watching that, I didn't really have any expectations, but after having watched that first season, I am still, maybe this is a little bit different because with The Boys, you're kind of like, okay, like I'm interested in it when it's on, but then when it's done, I don't really think about it. But with Invincible, I'm actually kind of like excited
Oh,
to
I'm
go
so
back
pumped.
to it.
Yeah.
But on top of that, I think the best version of a fucked up Superman ever made, in my opinion, is Omni-Man, and having J.K. Simmons voice him. Like they did something with that character who is usually always a catch 22 or catch all kind of thing, where it's like, there's nothing that can defeat that person, and there's always,
Mhm.
if there is, it's kryptonite, and it's just used in such a poor way. But like with this, they actually made him kind of an interesting character without completely having to revert the whole tone of the series into a kind of Batman-esque dark brooding thing. Like there is those elements there, but it's not all that necessarily.
Mhm.
It's more warped than it is sort of just completely morbid. And then yeah, like going back to the question I have for you, like, do you think overall that The Boys is better suited as a series than initially it was supposed to be a film, or a film series with like Adam McKay at one point was going to direct a feature film version?
I mean, I'm glad. And ironically, who's involved in both of these? Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg.
Yeah.
Like he produces both this and Invincible, so you can kind of see the stuff that interests him in the superheroes genre. Um, yeah, no, I think it definitely. I couldn't imagine it as movies. I guess that's maybe when you see how much they jam pack into these seasons of television, that I couldn't imagine them as movies. And I feel like they do earn their runtime and do earn their length and stuff like that. And shout out to Amazon for doing that weekly. I mean, they dump 3 episodes, which they always do. Apple TV does this as well, where they try to get people hooked with 3 episodes, and then they do a week to week, which I kind of like that format. Um, where I do feel like 3 episodes is sometimes too much for certain TV shows, but
Well, we
um,
talked about Stranger Things,
yeah, where I don't like I think this is a better show to kind of take your time with, but I understand binging it as well, and I couldn't imagine it as movies, so I'm kind of cool with it being a show. And I just like that idea of like, if superheroes existed in modern 2022, how would we deal with that?
Well, even
And
Watchmen, right? Like I
yeah,
feel like with the HBO version of Watchmen, like you're now getting stuff within sort of the mainstream comic book sort of lore with Marvel and DC, and then you're getting stuff like Invincible and The Boys and HBO's Watchmen that are kind of grappling with that idea of like, what would a real superhero be
Watchmen does
like
it
in.
best, don't get me wrong, but
Yeah, of those,
um,
but I'm talking about like all those shows that I just mentioned, those 3 shows, they kind of fit into that interesting kind of like subcategory of superhero sort of paraphernalia and fascination, where like it kind of feels like it is tackling stuff that Marvel and DC maybe at times can hint at or kind of
yeah,
reference, but they could never really touch
exactly.
because
And that's why it's so
they'd get
great.
in trouble, or it can't be R rated,
And
right?
that's what's great about, I think, all 3 of those things, right? And why I think I love them, because I love the MCU for different reasons. Like, it is just popcorn, kind of serialized, you know, entertainment, where I feel like these go into some territory that, like you just said, Marvel could never do, or they have to kind of tread lightly or just kind of skim the surface of it. Um, and this show tackles everything. Like it won't pull any punches on any topic that is pretty prevalent in today's society. So I think it's interesting putting that lens and taking the biggest genre in the world and applying it to real world things, in a very, funny but serious way. It's a really, really great show. So I'm pumped that it's back. And so I've been watching that. Um, and like, other than that, like, what have you been watching? I know we've both been watching Barry. Thank you.
Ooh, what do you have there?
I might eat while we've been
So was that a
recording a
hot
long
dog?
time. No, it's like a Philly cheesesteak sandwich thing that Nevis
Nice.
made. So
Nice.
anyways, I'll let you, Eric, what have you been watching? Barry, you want to
Yeah,
talk about it or
yeah.
what?
Let's talk about Barry. I think that like again, we're getting close to the end of season 3, and it is interesting. You mentioning with The Boys, like you haven't really thought about like the season 2 and since watching it, and
Yeah.
now getting back into it, you're kind of
Barry's
there
the same
again.
way a little bit.
Yeah, but I think part of with Barry as well, not because again, I can't vouch for The Boys here, but everything you're saying, like Barry, those first 2 seasons were great, and like it left you on a cliffhanger that you did want to continue, but so much time passed between season 2 and season 3 that, you know, you have other shows and movies and life obligations and, you know, to kind of deal with, that you do kind of over time forget, you know, how well written a show Barry is, and how smart it is with satirizing both Hollywood and the industry of Tinseltown, but also sort of like from the point of view of somebody who has a lot of mental health issues that is working on themselves and how they affect other people, and also this person being basically a deadly killer on top of that. So when season 3 came in that first episode, which, you know, each one feels like it's 20 minutes and then it's over, really, when it's a half an hour show, like it never overstays its welcome, and it always leaves you wanting more. But there are things in each episode that build beautifully from the last 2 seasons, but also kind of build naturally within the framework of its own season, and telling, you know, a complete story from beginning to end, and how everything connects in a way that isn't necessarily intricate to Barry completely, but has some sort of ramifications because of him, and how things kind of work not only in the immediate sort of time span we're following Barry in this story, but everything that's kind of led up to Barry's sort of past and what he's done then, and why he's trying to redeem himself and find redemption, and even the way his relationship has changed with Henry Winkler's Mr. Cousineau, which I keep wanting to see, like some sort of parody of Mr. Cousineau's Quiznos, which would be incredible. But like watching those two this season, and Barry trying to, you know, get Mr. Cousineau's forgiveness, and the way that Henry Winkler just looks at Barry now compared to how he saw him in those first 2 seasons. It's some of the best work that Henry Winkler has ever done.
Absolutely.
The writing is just so exquisite in and how it handles character, but also plot, and how it builds to kind of big moments of suspense, but also kind of has interesting things to say about where we are right now in both, you know, not only society, but just like, again, like in how Hollywood and sort of on-set sort of behavior is tolerated and not tolerated, and who is the villain and who's not the villain, and how complicated things are, and how also we can't resist certain impulses that we need to kind of act upon, and that is a part of our DNA. Like the way that Barry kind of continually, if something bad happens in, you know, his regular life, he kind of goes back to being a hitman. But then you also have someone like Stephen Root's character who has these options, these ways to leave the business and find happiness. But there's just something inside him that needs to get back at Barry, or one up him, or weirdly even kind of like get Barry to love him again, or need him again and be dependent on him, that I find absolutely fascinating. And it's just like you're watching those moments and you're thinking to yourself, like, one, again, they're so well written, but on top of that, the references that both him and Alec Berg are making to international cinema throughout this entire thing, like it doesn't feel like it's just referencing genre filmmaking anymore. Like there are so many interesting references to films from the Middle East, and films from Asia, and films you know, from around the world,
Well,
that
he's a
it's like,
huge
oh
cinephile, right?
yeah. I mean, Bill Hader. I mean, like, if you've ever seen like his adventures, the Criterion Channel adventures in cinema, like he is a true blue movie fan, to the point where like he's referencing Kiarostami and things like that, and then you're watching that play out in episodes of Barry, and you're just kind of like, wow, like I never would have thought I would see something like this in an English language TV show that is very dark, and again,
Funny too, actually.
funny, but also niche, because I mean there is an intellectual quality to it, even though it's never condescending to anybody watching it. But there
hugely inside baseball sometimes when it comes to Hollywood and like
yeah, but even those things feel very real. Like there's one bit in the last episode where um Vanessa Bayer of SNL is kind of like basically taking this meeting with Sally, and like how that sort of interview goes, and like how like it's like the thing that we're looking for we can't actually articulate, but we can make sound effects for, and it's just like it's so ridiculous. But even like some of the sight gags are amazing, like when Henry Winkler is escaping Barry's clutches in episode 2, and he runs through the
Oh
backyard
my god,
of a
the
couple's
puppy
house,
thing is
and
like,
it's like they're breaking up, and you're watching this like weird side story that we'll never see anything else from again, but in that moment it feels like it's their show. And then like they're talking about like, okay, the part of the reason why this couple is breaking up is because
they have too many
too
dogs.
dogs. And then like it's a stupid sight gag, but like seeing Henry Winkler run across the backyard, from the framing view of like this kitchen table situation, and then all these dogs chasing after him.
It's
Like
so good, dude.
it
And
gets
that's
it earns those
and that's
moments.
what the show is so great at. And it's not many people can do this, but it's that fine line between drama and comedy, right? Where the show is at, like, I forgot how shocking and dramatic it can be at times, and like the storytelling is so great, but then how funny it can be. And like with having comedians like Bill Hader and Stephen Root and
Henry Winkler
Henry
even.
Winkler, like these great dramatic roles, but then can also insert those comedic moments that don't feel out of place. And that's what's always like, I find myself laughing out loud multiple times per episode during Barry. It's one of the funniest shows on TV. And then on top of that, I just feel like it's telling a really compelling story about depression and Hollywood and PTSD and just toxic masculinity and just like
Abusive
abusive
relationships.
relationships and like all of this stuff. And then has those shocking moments of him being a hitman, whether it's showing his past as a hitman or what he has to do in way more interesting ways than like something like Dexter did, right? Where Dexter has to kind of cover his tracks, but he was made to be like a likable character for the majority of that series, where they're really not pulling any punches of making Barry likable, right? Like he is a likable guy because he's Bill Hader and he's charming kind of, and he seems like he's earnest at times, but he's in so deep into this secret life he has, that like when they show those elements and how ruthless he can be at times is like, it's genuinely shocking. And then like, yeah, just having these great comedic actors like Stephen Root is the guy who completely always impresses me, where I'm just like, I never think of him as that character, but he's doing such a good job on this show
When
as
he goes to
Fuchs,
get milk by milking the goat in that first episode, it
where
killed
he's
me.
just
Like,
chilling on that farm and he's just loving life.
and
And
NoHo
like,
Hank, and like
oh my
even
god,
like
yeah! Shout out to Anthony Carrigan too, because like NoHo Hank is just one of the top tier TV characters.
yeah, and just everything, like again, even with Sarah Goldberg as Sally, like what she's going through, and like the meeting she's trying to create this
The algorithm meetings,
that is amazing with Elizabeth
the oh my
Perkins,
god, the
where like
junket is so good too.
where they're talking about like, okay, well, like the algorithm, the taste algorithms or whatever. It's like you need to have these certain things, and like how frustrating it is, but also how it's kind of mocking like things like Rotten Tomatoes, where it's like, well, just because you're a critical hit doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be an audience crowd pleaser either. And the other show that's kind of copying you, even though it got a really bad rating, it's tracking better than the thing that you're on. And like, that relationship between like even her and her assistant, like I think that that's interesting as well, because she treats the her friend, who's also her assistant, um kind of in the same way that Barry and her are kind of handling things. And like it's just it is an interesting kind of trickling down effect of like how people treat each other is the way that they'll treat other people, because that's the way that they've been taught to behave, or the way that they've lived for so long. And then in this last episode, that again, it's such a simple joke, but it is so amazingly done, where you have everybody going to this cafe or this dessert place to get
The beignets.
beignets, and
Jake's
the beignet
beignets or
guy
whatever. Jake's
who's like
beignets.
who's basically like a therapist for everybody that comes in.
But he's this like stoner surfer dude, and it's so
He's like
funny.
a Zen master
And
in
that's
a
what it's
lot
so
of
good at, that
ways.
repetitive comedy that you never think you're gonna keep going back there, but it's the rule of three, right? Like you go back and it's funnier every time that you go back.
And the
And
action too, like that
yeah,
highway dirt
it's so
bike
good.
merger sequence is incredible. Like that's something like I hope Tom Cruise sees that and is like, okay, we need to do something like this in the next Mission Impossible movie or something, because like that is as good as any Mission Impossible movie.
I agree. I think the
Or even
jump.
when they get to the car dealership, the used car
Oh yeah,
dealership, and
that
where that
sequence
goes.
itself is incredible, dude. And then like the junket sequence is that inside baseball kind of thing, as film critics and interviewers who have gone through that process. It's like it's something you is really funny to people who have experienced that. And if you
Hey,
haven't, you're
girl.
probably yeah, like if you haven't experienced that, I feel like that might not land. But then if you have experienced it, that joke, the junket bit in that episode is so fucking funny. And only
And it's
someone,
ruthless too.
yeah, and only someone who has gone through that, like I'm sure Hader and the rest of this cast has done multiple times. It's like they can poke fun at that, and poke fun at the journalists that participate in those things and ask those types of questions, and the repetitiveness of a junket and all that kind of stuff, and those kind of weird things that inside Hollywood kind of stuff, I think works just as well as some of the more kind of mainstream humor and things like that. I want to give a shout out also to I didn't expect to see the dude from Jurassic Park in this season. The guy from the beginning of Jurassic
Oh
Park who
yeah,
finds the amber.
he's
Um,
a character actor that was in a lot of '90s stuff. He
yeah,
was in one of the um Jack Ryan films as well
and Joe Montana.
as Joe
It's
Montana.
so funny. It's so funny. Him talking about Fat Tony from The Simpsons. I was like, this is incredible. This is so funny. It's so good. It's
Yeah,
so good.
it is truly one of the best shows out there right now, and I'm kind of bummed that there's only 2 episodes left, but at the same time it's like it's one of those things where I don't want it to be gone for so long, but if it is, at least I know that they'll take, like, obviously there's so much effort being put into each episode. Um and you can tell like there's no moment that ever rings false. Like it just is one of those shows like this. Right now it's at its peak, I think, and everything it's done has been perfect. Like even the end of the last episode,
Dude, I have
and
no idea where it's going. And like
yeah,
I
it's
this whole
exciting.
arc on this season has been really, and like what you said, it's like it's building on elements that have happened in previous seasons, and like each season has its own arcs and stuff like that, much like we just talked about Lord of the Rings. But it feels like everything is building to this point, and how they take the Fuchs character and his bitterness towards Barry, um and yeah, where they take the Mr. Cousineau character and stuff like that. Like there are times where Barry can go from terrifying to funny, and just like it's uh it's awesome. Like shout out to Bill Hader, because like this seems like a passion project for him, and like showing his talents as both a director and a writer and an actor, because they have now said that he's directing every episode of next season, right? Like he's signed
It's gonna be good.
um to do the whole thing, which is awesome. So good for
Well,
him.
that one episode that everybody talks about, I think in season 2, where like it like it's like that one like take within the house, and like him literally being beaten up by the karate guy, and then like the kid chase like that. It's amazing. Like it truly is one of those shows where it's like you can never truly expect or be able to predict where you maybe have an idea of like, okay, these are probably the options of where things will end, but then like how you get there is like, okay, I never would have seen it going in this direction whatsoever. Even like the moment where you have Barry getting Mr. Cousineau back on set, and another shout out to Mark Paul Gosselaar, aka Zach Morris from Saved by the Bell, on the fake show that everybody watches,
Right.
Laws of Humanity, or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
where like I love when like Mark and Barry are having a conversation. It's like Mark's like, yeah, I was thinking about getting in the military, but it just never happened. And then it's like they get like ready for like the set. It's just like, and then you're like, holy shit, that's Mark Paul Gosselaar. That's
It's
Zach
funny.
Morris.
It's so funny, dude. And like even the flashbacks to him in the army, and it's all just like it goes to places that I just completely didn't expect. And like even with that karate episode that you were talking about of is like it's that weird like it's almost so absurd that it shouldn't work, right?
No.
But it does. And I don't know how he pulls it off, but like it is fantastic. It's really, really, really good.
Or even with like the one FBI agent who served beside
With
Barry,
him, yeah.
who comes back into the
Cops.
police
Call me
department.
Big Cat. It's like, I laughed so hard. And oh my God, like just little things like that where he's introducing himself and the cop goes, "Call me Big Cat." It's like, no, what? Oh my God.
And just that guy's reaction is like, are you fucking serious?
Great. We've been watching a lot of TV, as you can tell.
Yeah.
I haven't been watching a ton of movies. I want to catch up with the Jurassic Park movies before Jurassic World Dominion.
Well, good luck. I mean, you have less than
I have like a week.
Yeah.
I have to watch one per night. And if I'm going to see Top Gun in 40X tonight, I don't know if that's going to happen, but I'll at least watch maybe Jurassic Park and Jurassic World because I feel like that's probably all you need to like maybe kind of watch leading into this. But like,
I don't know if you could get through Fallen Kingdom again.
dude, I haven't watched it since I saw it in theaters. And I don't know if I could either, but the Kind of Funny guys did a in review series, which kind of sometimes motivates me to get through them because then I can listen to the podcast after. And I got to hear Greg Miller because he was the only one defending Fallen Kingdom, and he like he said he liked it and he thought it was one of the best Jurassic Park movies, and everyone's like, Greg, you have to be stopped. That's no one thinks that. So I don't know. I'm excited. I'm not excited. Excited is not the wrong word. I'm curious about Dominion. I know it's already out in some international territories and stuff. So, I don't
think
know.
I'm just relieved that it's almost over.
I agree.
At least these movies, because I'm sure they'll do more down the line. But
They'll
at
probably
least the ones
reboot
with,
it in 10 years or something like that.
Colin Trevorrow are done. The
Yeah.
Mr. DNA Jurassic World films.
Yeah. Anything else you've been watching that you want to talk about, or you want to just get into some...
I mean, we also have been watching Obi-Wan Kenobi,
which I think we'll do a separate episode on probably maybe when it's done, but
and do like a spoiler kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it so far.
But speaking of Viggo Mortensen and Howard Shore,
yeah, you saw
I watched the new David Cronenberg movie, which I actually really liked quite a bit. Is it top tier Cronenberg? I don't know as of yet, but at the same time, it's a film that I keep thinking about, but the best Cronenberg movies when he presents his ideas, which are usually streamlined and singular in terms of, okay, he's always interested in how new developments within the body affect society or change the environment and how everybody adapts to the situation. And with this, you have a dystopian future where people can grow new organs, and it basically has become sort of like this pastime kind of thing where performance artists, played by Viggo Mortensen and Leah Seydoux, remove those organs from Viggo Mortensen's character, Sal Tensor, and like you think to yourself like, okay, like this is like a really weird, dystopian future where like performance art is valued or considered to be like the most entertaining thing left, and the film being shot all in Greece, but at the same time in Athens specifically, like even though it's such a beautiful location, he finds the most kind of rustic and corrosive sets, and most of it kind of feels like you're watching a play because it is very exposition heavy and philosophical in its conversations about the environment, about the next step in evolution of humankind and where we are and where we're progressing. And it's also weirdly, I don't want to say, because I feel like something like Existence and Videodrome are more pessimistic, but it's almost kind of like at a point where it's comfortable in accepting where humanity is ultimately gone or going, because it's like, oh, the future's here now, and this is where we are, and this is kind of what we deserve. And like there's this whole subplot about this sort of group of plastic eating rebels who, like, again, like your insides are now adapting to the place where you can no longer eat regular food. You are now eating um man-made environmental waste and plastic and things like that. And so now you become like a basically a cleaner of the environment, or a bottom feeder in a weird way. And then you have all this stuff with the National Organ Registry with Don McKellar and Kristen Stewart, who are kind of the last line of the government, working as this agency that tattoo new and unidentified organs. And again, it's all very heady, it's all very kind of deadpan in its delivery, sometimes extremely humorous. It's grotesque only in, like, I don't think, if you are a Cronenberg fan, you will not be as disturbed by it. If you've never seen a David Cronenberg movie before, then yeah, you might be weirded out by the body modification and mutilation and things like that. But honestly, it doesn't feel like anything outside of the comfort zone of what Cronenberg has already presented and stuff. But it is a continuing conversation that I think is always interesting. And it's Cronenberg just has a lot of ideas that when you're watching it, if you're into what he's talking about, they do make you think about where we are as humanity, and even where Cronenberg is. Because like I feel like the performance artist thing is analogous to who Cronenberg is, because you look at like where Cronenberg started his career in the late 1960s and then into the 70s, making schlock B movies that were considered reprehensible by the Canadian Ratings Board, to the point where he was charged and almost put in jail for making movies like Rabid and Shivers. And now anytime we discuss a Cronenberg movie or a body horror film or anything that's adjacent to his style, we're complimentary of his work, and you know call his stuff Cronenbergian, or like like look at T10 last year, right? I mean, so it's interesting to see like the performance artists in this kind of being originally like outsiders and on the fringes of society, but now being kind of put on this pedestal and oogled and awed by the remains of society in a kind of celebrity celebratory manner. But at the same time, the performance artist still feeling kind of like, I don't know about this. This is weird for me, because you people have always kind of demonized me for the longest time, and now you're kind of like coming to me for entertainment or philosophical advice on something. And so like that I found really interesting as well. So there is a lot going on there. And even if you don't love the movie, I think the one thing that a lot of people will dig is Howard Shore's score, which kind of is this weird,
Just Lord of the Rings again.
no, it's one of those things where it's like I don't want to say it's necessarily synthy, but like it kind of feels like it borrows a little bit of synth from from the last maybe like 10 years or so, like from the Nicholas Winding
Yeah.
Refn kind of filmography. But then also it's also taking like just like cues from classical and kind of mashing them all together to make this weird kind of minimalistic but at the same time very memorable piece of
Music.
composition and score that kind of sticks with you and kind of is unsettling and kind of keeps you on edge, but also has these tragic notes as well. And yeah, again, I think Cronenberg isn't for everybody, but if you give it a chance, there is a lot being said within the context of the film and what Cronenberg is thinking of, and like his thoughts on humanity, but also on the environment, on our government and repression, and just there's a lot there. And like it is one of those films that you will want to sort of like marinate on and think about. And yeah, I liked it a lot. And it's just one of those movies where it's like I was just grateful to see another Cronenberg movie, because it's been 8 years since Map to the Stars, and that was one of his weaker films. And I think Crimes of the Future is more satirical and more interesting in terms of the human body and human nature than Maps to the Stars was. So
Cool.
yeah, it's also a vampire movie, weirdly, as well. Like Viggo Mortensen's character arc feels very much like a vampiric storyline. So you could
Okay.
even look at it like that, as like a gothic horror movie with kind of like a deadpan wry sense of humor throughout. But yeah, if you're not into Cronenberg movies, this is not going to be the one that wins you
Yeah,
over.
I'm curious. Like I'm not into them. I'm just like I'm gonna try to catch it before I leave. Like I know it's playing at Lightbox now. Um and I think that's the perfect spot to go see it. But I I might try to squeeze it in. I know we have a couple screenings this week, so maybe I pop in there after something like that. But I don't know how much. I don't really have that much time this week leading into it, but leading into leaving. But I'm looking. I do want to see it. I'm glad I skipped the screening because that's the day that I did have COVID, but didn't know I had COVID, and I skipped it just because I knew I was feeling a bit worn down. And I'm glad I skipped it because I probably I didn't want to try to risk anyone else or anything like that. But yeah, I'm gonna try to give it a. I don't think we'll be able to squeeze in a review or anything before I go, but I'm glad to get your thoughts now because I do want to go see it. So you've opened. I've seen like his biggest, most mainstream stuff, right? Like I love A History of Violence, I love Eastern Promises, and
You've
then
seen The Fly,
I've seen The Fly, and I
probably
saw.
The Dead Zone. If you have you seen the Christopher
No, those are
Walken
the
Dead Zone?
only. Those are.
That's another mainstream one for
I
him.
definitely want to like go and watch some of them, but or if not all of them, but
You might also like Existence as well, which is also
I
kind of
have
like there's
Videodrome, never watched it.
Videodrome is again is another movie where like I think you will get something out of it just because you're very familiar with Toronto. Like
Yeah.
the station that James Woods' character in Videodrome works at is supposed to be kind of a mock version of CTV,
Oh, cool.
or
Yeah.
City TV, pardon me.
Oh,
And so like with that like there's a lot of references to Canadian culture at that time period, especially with like the invention of or the prelude to reality television
yeah.
specifically, and how Cronenberg was kind of again always ahead of the curve when it came to predicting a lot of this stuff and where sort of mainstream entertainment was going to find the next sort of thing to be addicted to.
Yeah.
But Existence is another one that I think you might find some interesting beats in there because it is kind of like his version of the Matrix when it came out the same year, and it was basically trumped by the Matrix. But the idea of like a group of people playing video games but not being able to discern reality from the virtual world, and the virtual world being so real that you're not sure if you're still in the virtual world or back in reality, and like the guns and weaponry that they create are all like fleshy, and like the
Okay.
game controllers look like they were cut out of your
Right.
body.
Cool.
And that's even in Crimes of the Future, where
Yeah.
like the controllers and technology is somewhat antiquated, but at the same time it has like this kind of like skin like sort of,
Gross.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's really gross. But
Cool.
again, that's Cronenberg for you.
Heck yeah. Um anything else before we're getting kind of long in the tooth here, but I assumed we would go a bit long because of we haven't recorded and we've recorded basically all afternoon today, everyone a little behind the scenes. Um so I'm kind of hitting a wall a little bit, but I do want to talk about some trailer stuff that we missed. Like quickly, other shit that I've been watching, I honestly haven't watched that much. Like I've been watching so much TV. Like I watched The Hustler, which we talked a little bit about in our Top Gun review. I rewatched Top Gun. You guys can check out our review for Chip and Dale. We talked about X-Men Days of Future Past because it was playing on mute at the Mattchelor Party. Obi-Wan Kenobi, things like that. Television wise, there's something else I've been watching too, but I forget. And then I watched the Bo Burnham, the Inside Outtakes. So watched that with Nevis the other night. Thought it was great. Definitely understood why these were like the deleted songs that didn't make the final version. Like some of them obviously you could tell like, oh, I understand why you cut that. Not that they were bad, but not as strong as a lot of the other stuff on Inside, but like still immensely enjoyed it. Like the way that he edited it together and like of using outtakes is the thing of like it showed some of his creative process of like the way that he would frame it of putting like almost a Brady Bunch style of every take he did, and then would eliminate them as he fucked up, and then only leaving one take left that was the good take that he did. It just showed like how much work he put into this entire thing. So you got a little bit of behind the scenes stuff of him making Inside, and then you got some deleted songs and some deleted music videos from that he just didn't include. So you do get Bezos 3 and Bezos 4, which is great.
Ooh.
And then you also get a couple songs that were bangers. Like Nevis has been loving 5 years, which is like the perfect Drake song. Like it's just him imitating a Drake song, and he does such a good job with it, especially if you've been in a long-term relationship. It's like a really just kind of Bo Burnham's one of those guys too that like straddles that line of like taking something that's a very obvious joke and elevating it, or doing something that's a little bit more clever than just kind of the, you know, the very easy joke, right? Like with even White Woman's Instagram, and even I were talking about that today, of like a very almost lazy joke of poking fun at white women on Instagram, just taking photos of their food and like dumb photos of flowers and different things like that. But then there's that nugget in that song that's actually not even just funny, it's just very sweet, about the young woman who's talking about her mom who passed away 10 years ago and how much she misses her. And like, and to me, it's like that's what makes Bo Burnham special, is like finding that humanity either to make fun of or showcase in his music and his comedy, that I feel like elevates something that could be taken as very simple or very obvious, and makes it something more. So even with 5 years of like being in a long-term relationship and you become comfortable, or like the way that you argue 5 years into a relationship compared to when you first start dating, is I think a very obvious commentary. But the way that it elevates, and the satire of a Drake song, and adding in just very just funny, clever lyrics really helps it, and then, or really makes it work. And then there's a song um that's the simplest joke, and probably like it's why did the chicken cross the road joke, but turned into a song. And it's like, again, he takes something that's so simple, one of the oldest jokes ever, and turns it into something else. So like there's a couple things on there that were gems that obviously didn't work in the final edit of Inside, but like it's still definitely a worthwhile hour watch. I don't know if you've watched it yet, Eric.
No, I haven't. It's been one of those things where it's like it did take me a while to get to Inside, but at the same time, it's like because it is an extended edition, and a lot of the stuff that didn't, well, all the stuff that didn't make the final cut. That's always been something where it's like, okay, well, there is sometimes a reason for that, and I don't want it to ruin my feelings towards
It
Inside.
won't. It won't. Like, if anything, you'll be like me, where you're like, ah, that I understand why he cut that song, and then
Yeah,
like, and then other times you'll go, oh, that's a cool behind the scenes look at how he made Inside, and then there'll be, I think you will like Bezos 3 and 4, and then I feel like he's just on the main thing. He's like, all right, I don't need 4 Jeff Bezos jokes, but like, it's still funny, like even hearing them, and
right.
then and you can just listen to the music too. Like the deluxe edition of Inside um, is out now. And what's great about it is that there's the third disc, because the original Inside is disc 1 and disc 2 with all the music from the special. And then disc 3 on this one is all the new music. And disc 4 is all instrumentals of like him doing instrumentals of content and different songs from his album, but in different styles. So one is like video game style, one is XYZ style. And like if you're just looking for something to play in the background while you're doing something else, like I found that last bit of music was kind of fun. So really enjoyed that. That was the other thing that I've been watching.
Quickly, I'll just mention because my review will be coming out this week. I saw Hustle starring Adam Sandler, and it's a pretty formulaic but also um, comfortable sports inspirational underdog story where Sandler plays this kind of burnt out and still somewhat enthusiastic basketball scout, and he's traveling across America and the rest of the world looking for new basketball players to join the Philadelphia's 76ers, and it kind of hits a lot of the notes that you'd expect, kind of like that feel good sports movie to hit, but it is a nice kind of character study as well, where you have Adam Sandler playing off of a former basketball player, Juancho Hernandez Gomez, who used to be a Boston Celtic. And so, you know, it's the relationship stuff is the strongest there, and it is also kind of funny. Like, obviously Adam Sandler has now done a lot of really strong dramatic work, you know, with Uncut Gems and the Meyerowitz stories and Punch Drunk Love and things like that. So that's not surprising. But what is kind of surprising is that this is a production that was made through not only Netflix but through Happy Madison. So the Happy Madison logo comes up at the beginning of the movie. So if you've seen it before, it's the guy who does like the
They're
it's
terrific.
yeah. And so when that comes up, like, you've been primed so many times as
That
you've
you're
seen
getting fucking grown-ups
an,
for or something.
yeah, an Adam Sandler, Rob
Sandy
Schneider,
Wexler.
David Spade movie, and then you watch this film, which is a very straightforward, conventional, well-made basketball movie that's you know, a drama for the most part.
Yeah.
And then it's just so jarring, like
Yeah.
being like, you seeing that logo and then watching the film. But Sandler is really really good in the movie, and I got a chance to interview the director, Jeremiah Zager, and so that'll be on Rogers TV this week as well.
Cool.
But yeah, it's not a great movie per se, but it's the sum of its parts, and I think Adam Sandler like truly feels the most comfortable he's ever been on screen, especially in his element, because he does
I
love
love
basketball
basketball, bro.
so much.
Does
And
he
like,
wear big shorts?
oh, he sure does.
Oh yeah.
And on this, I mean, like, if you're looking at, on the scale of like Moneyball to Trouble with the Curve, this is somewhere nicely in the middle.
between?
It's not
Okay.
as good as Moneyball, but it's nowhere near as bad as Trouble with the Curve.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll check it out. All right. We're at 2:10. I think let's wrap up the
T10.
show talking about, you know, the plethora of trailers we missed over the last month or so, because we missed some big ones. Like, I made a thumbnail before I got COVID that was just, the episode was going to be called The Return of Jake Sully. And that was we were going to talk about Avatar. We were going to talk about Jake Sully. We saw the Avatar The Way of the Water trailer. We saw it before, you know, everyone else got to see it. But now,
Because we're the cool kids.
now we're way behind. Like, we missed the trailers for Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. We missed the trailers for Thor Love and Thunder, I think both of them.
Yes, both the teaser and the full
and the
length
full trailer. We have trailers for Man from Toronto. We got trailers for Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe. We got
She-Hulk.
Pinocchio, She-Hulk, Beast, the Greyman. What else do we got? 3,000 Years of Longing.
I mean, we missed all we didn't even cover the Cannes Film Festival, which quickly, I'll just say that I'm really excited to see Ruben Ostlund's next film.
Oh yeah, it won the
Triangle
Palme d'Or.
Sadness, which won the Palme d'Or. So that's his second Palme d'Or.
Yeah, good for him, dude. And like, the Square, I think I liked. I think of Force Majeure more than the Square, but I'm definitely absolutely down to see that. Can't wait. And sorry, we're not going to really cover news and things. Maybe on the next episode, we'll bank an episode where we talk about that. But we got a Spiderhead trailer. We got Where the Crawdads Sing. We got Prey, the new Predator movie, which was a very short trailer, but we got that.
I keep wanting to call it Where the Crawdaddies Sing.
Oh yeah, Crawdaddies. That's what Nevis calls me.
Okay, that's too much information.
Cha Cha Real Smooth had a trailer. And then we're back to Way of the Water. So we missed all that. And you said She-Hulk.
Yep.
I don't think we missed any other Disney Plus trailer. We kind of, at Star Wars Celebration, we got
Andor.
And then, so Eric, where do you want to start? We can kind of just talk about what we want to talk about. We don't have to talk about every single thing. Is there something you want to start with? We can start with the Marvel stuff. We can go over the
I'm gonna
like.
level with you. I haven't watched Pinocchio because I
Oh
have
my god,
literally put my
yeah.
foot down on Robert Zemeckis.
I think you made a good choice because like, uh, yeah, God, I don't know. Like, I agree. I agree completely. Um, it looks bad. I will say that. Like, it does not. It look like it's just Zemeckis though. Like, I don't know what it is, or I do know what it is. It's just him lately.
It's his love of stop motion animation or stop motion motion capture
yeah.
that has just gotten in the way of
They
storytelling
don't
again.
even
Because like
show the titular Pinocchio. I'm like, what are you hiding? Do you not know what his design looks like? He's gonna look like the animated Disney Pinocchio.
they're worried that they're
Like,
gonna have an ugly Sonic
it
situation,
kind
so
of
like they're
feels like
just
that.
gonna
He's just you only see the shadow from behind. You see Tom Hanks's Geppetto doing a horrible accent, which just seems like the
Cloud Atlas.
well, not even
Is it
that.
part of the Cloud Atlas
I
universe?
like him in Cloud Atlas because that
No,
kind
I
of
do
fits
too, but
that
it feels like
movie.
that could be a character in Cloud
But I mean, the
Atlas.
Zemeckis trademark is someone doing a horrible accent lately. So
Well,
like,
Joseph Gordon-Levitt is Jiminy Cricket, right?
oh, is he? And you don't really hear Jiminy Cricket in the trailer. You
He's got to
really
have an accent though.
you hear When You Wish Upon a Star. Um you know, it's going to be like any of those Disney animated like remakes. Like, the only thing I worry is that Pinocchio will look too cartoony. Like
Or too real.
yeah, well, he's not a real boy yet.
He'll be too frightening
Um
looking. It'll be like from the movie Pinocchio's Revenge,
yeah.
which is like a 90s slasher film.
So
I'm going to send you a photo of
please
the
do.
VHS cover.
So yeah, Zemeckis, you know, I always am down for a Zemeckis Hanks collab, but like, I don't know, man. It's just, I guess he's the right,
After Marwin Call, I was
and I
done.
didn't see
I'm
it because I refused After the Walk. The Walk wasn't when I was like, I'm done. I
I
can't
didn't
do it.
watch The Witches because
Oh,
after
neither did
Marwin
I.
Call, I
Yeah.
was like I can't do it.
So I haven't seen the last couple Zemeckis movies because After the Walk and how much I hated that, I just was like, I don't think I can do this anymore. So I skipped both of those. Um, we can go into the Marvel territory. So we got She-Hulk and Thor: Love and Thunder trailer 1 and 2. Um, She-Hulk, some dodgy CG. I will just come out and say that. Doing Tatiana a little dirty in her look for the titular She-Hulk. I don't know how you fix that. Like, I feel like I'm definitely intrigued with the superhero law element and it being kind of a weekly. I hope it's going to be sort of a case of the week kind of thing, even though it might have a overarching story. Like, it reminds, I hope it's something like Harvey Birdman or
Oh
something like
God.
that. Like
Or
that.
even Man Bat and Harley Quinn.
Yeah, like that's what I want, right? Like, is bring some deep cut MCU people in, or Marvel characters, and like have it as a case of the week kind of thing. And like, I'd definitely be down for that for superhero law and order. But that trailer just didn't really do all that much for me, and I think it was the CG that kind of took me out of it. And I think it's something that, like, it's that uncanny valley kind of thing where like the Hulk character, even though you see a little bit of Ruffalo in the face, he's still a monstrous, like, he doesn't feel like he's supposed to look human, right? Like, because he's still this gigantic green monster. When you have Jennifer Walters as She-Hulk and she's just slightly bigger than what a normal person looks like, you have that uncanny valley in the face where it looks like Tatiana Maslany on this big green woman. And like, it's just, you either need to make her gigantic like the Hulk. That way you don't have that connection of this is supposed to look like a human. And I feel like that's where my brain is getting fucked up watching that trailer because I just feel like it does not look great.
Yeah, I agree with you. I, I'm happy for her because she is such a wonderful actor, and that like I hope that this opens up more roles because after Orphan Black, she was always on the short list for a lot of Star Wars and Marvel stuff. She was really wonderful in the Jake Gyllenhaal, David Gordon Green directed Stronger, and it just and even though I didn't really love Destroyer, she was one of the highlights in that movie, the Nicole Kidman film. But yeah, I just think, like, looking at this is like, to your point, Mark Ruffalo is also a good team player because he's paired with human characters and you're not always focused on the Hulk. You have other people he's playing off with, and usually those people are also, real people. They're not CGI. They're in camera usually. So now you have, the probably one of the main relationship threads being, these two CGI characters talking back and forth to each other, and one has had a little bit more time to be kind of developed in just terms of the designs, where, like, I'm sure She-Hulk at some point will kind of go through sort of new iterations and probably look better in a film wherever she ends up after the She-Hulk season 1. I'm sure that that's going to be an ongoing series, because originally it was just called She-Hulk. Now it's called She-Hulk Attorney at Law, so it kind of feels like it does have like a episodic kind of
Yeah,
subtitle there.
I
and
hope
and yeah,
so.
like, its strength will really depend on, I think that, or the humor at least, will depend on, like, like superheroes with like petty grievances, taking it out in like small claims court or something like
Yeah.
that. That's like, you have to deal with like these super powered beings, but in kind of like practical, mundane, systematic institutions. And I think that might be kind of funny. And to your point, like, you know, Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law, is so dry and so weird. It's so
When you bring in
just,
the Hanna-Barbera like characters and stuff like that they would
yeah.
constantly do, and
Are they going to turn one of the characters like they did Fred Flintstone into kind of like a Tony Soprano-esque character?
yeah,
And I just love Gary Cole, who voices Harvey Birdman, his kind of just delivery and just
yeah.
kind of being almost like kind of weirdly unaffected by everything,
Yeah, it'll
which
be
is
interesting because you
amazing.
have Tim Roth coming back, then you have Ruffalo involved, and Jamil is playing the villain. Titania, I think, is her name, and like, so I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm
Did you see the text of Pinocchio I sent for to you?
Yeah, I did. It's hilarious. I laughed while you were talking about. It's horrifying. I looked at it on my watch. Um, that's hilarious. And then moving over to Thor: Love and Thunder, we got both the teaser and the trailer within a couple weeks span. Um, the first trailer, heavily just kind of a vibe trailer. Sweet Child of Mine being the song that they're using, much like Immigrant Song in Ragnarok. It seems like Sweet Child of Mine is that in this. Whether it's used in the film or not, who
Like
knows?
it was
But
used in Big Daddy as well.
yeah, sure, bringing it back to Sandman. Um, I'm definitely in on Love and Thunder. Like, I like Thor kind of being at his, getting back in shape and being like retiring kind of thing, but then being brought in back in more. Korg is always great for me. uh Korg, my favorite MCU character, Korg and Meek. I got a little Meek Lego right here, and I just got this the other day, Eric. So I got bro Thor's gaming room from New Asgard. So you got Korg and Thor playing some games here. So I'm gonna build that Lego at some point. And you got Meek there as well, and a bunch of pizza boxes. So I'm always down for more Korg and Meek. I love the New Asgard stuff. I love the Olympus stuff. Russell Crowe as Zeus sounds awesome. Love the color palette.
You love the
Again,
Grayman.
going, yeah, and then you get into the second trailer and we got our first look at Christian Bale as Gore the God Butcher. I love the contrast there and the juxtaposition between those super incredibly colorful Taika Waititi like Thor, cinematography, and then on Gore's planet or wherever he is, it's just completely saturated and black and white. Like, I think that's kind of an interesting stylistic choice. I know a lot of people don't love the look of Gore, based on what he looks like in the comics, and he kind of looks like what that guy from Infinity War and Endgame, the little Squidward guy, like um
Yeah, I know. Like one
Ebony
of the
Ebony Maw.
what
And
were the Midnight Children or something?
yeah,
Or
yeah. The Children of Thanos or whatever. And
yeah,
like, yeah, I don't mind it. Like, I think you still needed him to look like Christian Bale if you get Christian Bale. Like, I feel like you don't want him to play a CG character or or things like that. So like I don't mind that, and I don't have like a huge attachment to the look of that character. So I love the idea of him going around and like trying to hunt down gods and kill them. Like I think that's really dope. And having Natalie Portman come back play the mighty Thor with Jane Foster, like I'm super excited to see how that plays out. And I think it's such a fun thing of someone who hasn't really been involved in the MCU in quite some time. And it wasn't necessarily done dirty in those first two movies, but like, I could see why she didn't really want to come back after that second one. But now when you give her something,
Well, she
um,
did have a bit of like when Patty Jenkins was going to do
yeah,
Thor: The Dark World after she dropped out. I think Natalie Portman had some issues with Marvel's replacement because she wanted a female director to come
yeah,
on and do it. So it's just like, yeah, I can understand why, like that frustration of being like, like creatively speaking. So obviously Taika Waititi is somebody that seems to be kind of level-headed and about the actors first and the mechanics second of the MCU. I'm looking forward to it as well, but again, I'm thinking I think I mentioned this the last time we talked about Taika Waititi. I'm feeling a little burnt
yeah,
out with
I
him.
agree. All right. I
Um,
understand.
nothing like it's almost like the same thing with like James Gunn, where like there was that moment where James Gunn just was too much on like social media and the same way where like Taika Waititi has just been so kind of homogenized in movies that are kind of terrible or mediocre at best, everything from Free Guy to like it's like one of those things where it's like it's too much exposure.
Yeah.
So but again, like I'm sure the movie will be fun and it will be a nice kind of summer release and what have you, so it'll be here sooner than
God, yeah.
July 8th, right?
Exactly
So
like a month basically, right? Yeah. Right when I get back from my trip is probably like the day I get back will probably be our screening of it. So like I might go straight from the airport on European time straight to Thor
I
screening.
hope you'll
So
look like Gore the God Butcher when you get
I
back.
probably will. All the life sucked out of me. Um where do you want to go from here? What else did we miss? What else? Avatar. We got to talk about Avatar.
Oh yeah,
Um so
Jake Sully's back.
God. So we got to see this trailer on loop before Doctor Strange in 3D in the AVX theater at Scotiabank in Toronto. Um, Avatar, I said it when we talked about Lord of the Rings. It was that movie when I was in college and starting into this thing where, I was like, you know what, this thing is too popular. I need to take it down a peg. Like personally, I need to be the one that says it's not as good as. And I don't even think people said it was great. It's just became this phenomenon of like this new technology, and you had to go see it in 3D
And it was the
and
return of James Cameron, who hadn't
totally.
directed a film since Titanic, right? So
Yes, and that was it, right? It's the guy who directed Titanic making a movie again. So as a dumb college kid, I was like, Avatar sucks and you're all morons. As I got older, it went down from Avatar sucks to Avatar's fine. I just have
the
no
theme park's
like
great.
that is true. When I did go to Walt Disney World like 5 years ago with Nevis, there's probably longer now, but um, went to Pandora and was shocked how great it was. The ride is awesome. You get to ride a Banshee and you fly through Pandora, and it's fucking awesome. It actually made me go back and revisit the Avatar movies after that, because I think before
You
that
mean
I
the
was like,
Avatar movie?
sorry, the Avatar movie. Yeah, sorry. By now I thought we should have had 7 of them.
Yes.
Um the Avatar movie. So, and I went back and rewatched it recently in the last, probably after that, so 5 years ago or something like that, at Mike Muntz's house, and I think in 3D. Um, and I'm still mostly indifferent, but I didn't hate it, much like Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings, I think I liked, where this I didn't necessarily like. I think there's a lot of dumb shit in there. Unobtainium is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life, and it takes itself
A little
way
too
too
on the nose,
seriously.
if you ask
It's
me.
like, and it's not even trying to be funny with it. It's just playing it very straight, and it takes itself very seriously. And
Do
I
you think
think
the movie was about
it
environmental issues?
yeah, and it thinks it's more important than it is, I think, like, or it thinks it's more clever or original than it is, when it's a plot in a movie you've kind of seen a million times. And people made the jokes to Pocahontas and Fern Gully and you know, a ton of other things, but
Dances with
Dances
Wolves.
with Wolves and so I don't
I
think
mean, it made Sam Worthington one of the biggest movie stars in the world, right?
that guy is loving it right now because like what was he doing? He was just chilling at home, not
He was
doing
the man on
anything.
the
Like
ledge, Matt.
he wasn't doing anything. And he's like, wait, you
He
want to
was in
bring
Hacksaw Ridge.
so anyways, this trailer, thought it looked like more Avatar. I would say that we in the last decade, 13 years since Avatar, I feel like movies and movie going has completely changed, and the types of movies people go see and the types of movies we get on a monthly basis and weekly basis now, that like I don't know what that movie's going to do to impress people as much as the first movie did with its CG and its 3D and stuff like that. Like I looked at it and I'm like, does this look, I'm sure if I put them side by side, like the original Avatar and footage from this one, I could clearly tell one was made 13 years later. But just watching the trailer, I was like, okay, yeah, it looks pretty and it looks like Avatar. Like I don't know, Jake Sully's back. I'm like, sick. I don't know, like
Sick, bro.
I'm like, awesome, I guess. Like, I don't know. And like, you don't get much plot, obviously, in the teaser trailer. It is more of a vibe trailer and it's very short. And it looks like it's the big thing is going to be this underwater cinematography underwater motion capture that they've been doing where, but I don't know. It just doesn't really do anything for me.
Yeah, I don't think the trailer really worked for me either. But again, I don't want to, count out James Cameron, because if anybody can make a sequel work, it will be him. But yeah, I think like watching this trailer, it's like, okay, return to Pandorum, and get some R&R.
Pandorum?
Pandora. See, I don't even care that much about like the continuity of the world, and like I remember
Name one other character.
I can't.
I can't either.
I can name like the Navi, which is
Yes,
the
the
race, but
race. But
yeah,
Jake Sully, what was Zoe Saldana's character's name that he was
Zoe
in love with?
Saldana,
Um,
Zoe,
oh God, like in what was Stephen? What's his name?
Stephen Lang.
Stephen Lang's character, and he's coming back, right? Didn't he
Yeah.
die? And like
Oh,
Sigourney Weaver.
Quattridge is his
I'm pulling
character's
up the
name.
Avatar names. This is what I'm saying, and I know it's
Uh,
like an easy, lazy joke, but anyways, keep going.
I know, but even thinking like, okay, this is the first of what, four
Sequels.
more movies, and it's like, if this film does not work, what do they do with the other films? And then
Disney
on
Plus,
top of,
baby.
I guess, and then on top of that, it's like, well, 3D really didn't take, it didn't become the norm, and
They
it was
tried
part,
really hard.
and they're going to try again with this. And like, well, one thing that you have to do is like, the only way I think you can really get people interested in it is like 3D less or 3D
Yeah.
classesless
Yeah.
experiences, and that, I don't think the technology's there yet.
And I don't think
I don't
theaters
want
will
corrective
want
eye
to.
surgery for it either.
Yeah.
So.
James Cameron will pay for your LASIK surgery so you can get 3D eyeballs. And I don't think theaters will want to invest like they did the first time because I felt like they
After a pandemic,
and after
no.
they kind of got burned, being like they all spent so much money buying new 3D projectors, which ultimately made going to the movies objectively worse. like it's just, again, I'm not one of those guys that film is everything. Like it did make it easier. It did make it like there's lots of pros, but there are a lot of cons as well. But um I don't know. I just can't see them, like they all have 3D projectors now. So a lot of them will just play it in 3D because of that. And you're going to get some high frame rate stuff because of these new projectors. They can have, a variable refresh rate
Well,
and
isn't
be
he
able to
also
play
shooting the film in a higher frame rate as well? Like,
certain sequences though, not
yeah.
the whole thing. Cause he's come out and said that he doesn't like 48 frames per second really, like, or 60 frames or 120 or whatever. But he says it works for certain scenes, which and if anyone's going to do it properly, James Cameron will, because like, I, I agree with that, where like something like Gemini Man,
Oh God.
the action
Or Billy
sequences,
Lynn.
Billy Lynn doesn't work at all because there's no fucking action in it. So it's just like the action sequences in Gemini Man in 120, or was it just 60 or 48? I don't know. High frame rate. The high frame rate action sequences I think have the potential to look cool. It's just any of the dialogue sequences is awful. Like
Yeah.
it's just the worst thing in the world. So like I'm not against a variable
Motion
refresh
smoothing,
rate
baby.
where it can go down to 24 frames per second during a dialogue scene, but then go up to 48 or 60 or 120 or whatever, like during a swimming sequence or an action sequence or something like that, which is I think how he'll probably use it. But I don't know, man. Like it just, I don't know how you can have a compelling story over 4 movies. I know it's going to involve a lot of children, right? Because it seems like they've had kids, and because 10 years have passed or 13 years have passed since the original movie.
So
And
is this a legacy sequel then?
I tweeted it. Is it? What?
Could be.
There's a whole conversation. I got to put another we can't. We're 2.5 hours. We got to save this for another show. But like
We'll save it for the movie itself.
Yeah, cuz I do want to have that conversation eventually of what is the timeline for a legacy sequel? Is it 10
Right.
years? Is it 20 years? 15? Like we're in the middle between 10 and 15 here. It's 13 years. So
I would
it's
say
like,
that this does count because it is like there hasn't been any other Avatar related other than the theme parks content. Like it literally is like one movie to the next. Now you could say that the sequels to follow aren't going to be the legacy sequels, but between 1 and 2 that is enough time. I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, is it Jim, if you're watching or listening to this, which you're not,
it definitely is.
um
He's listening to it in his submarine going down to the bottom of the ocean.
Please, for the love of God, just get True Lies and The Abyss on Blu-ray
On
and 4K already.
Yeah.
We've been waiting. See, that's a legacy sequel I would like to see, is for True Lies too. But,
yeah, who knows?
So
yeah, characters from Avatar. Stephen Lang, you said his name was?
Quaritch or Court.
Yeah, you got it. Colonel Miles
Fuck! I'm an Avatar nerd.
Quaritch. Sigourney Weaver's character is Dr.
I don't know.
Grace Augustine.
Great name.
Michelle Rodriguez as Trudy Chacon. Okay, cool. Giovanni Ribisi as Parker Selfridge. Joel David Moore as Dr. Norm Spellman. Everyone's got that action figure. Dilip Rao as Dr. Max Patel. And then the Navi, Zoe Saldana is Neytiri?
Oh,
Neytiri?
yeah.
Okay.
Neytiri, yeah.
Okay. Didn't see what I don't even remember when I say it out loud. It doesn't even CCH Pounder? Is that how you say her name?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Her
She's a
full
great
name
character
is
actor.
Carol Christine Hilaria Pounder. Incredible. Born on Christmas Day. Shout out to CCH Pounder. Fucking incredible. One of the best names ever. Plays Moat. Wes Studi plays Itukin. And Laz Alonso plays Tasuti. So yeah.
I mean, doesn't CCH Pounder sound like a better like sci-fi character name than half of these?
Yes, anyone with the name CCH Pounder, like that's fucking awesome. What a great.
Yeah, she was on The Shield, and I really liked her in Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight.
Incredible name. So shout out to her. And then in this one, Jake Sully's returning. Natiri's returning. CCH Pounder as Moat is returning. Cliff Curtis is in this movie as Tanawari. Awesome. Kate Winslet as Ronald McDonald.
Ronald McDonald is having a CCH Pounder
for dinner,
for lunch.
Yeah. And then you got Jack Champion as Javier Spider Socorro. Great name, actually.
Is Joel David Moore back? Is that?
No, not that I see. Giovanna Ribisi's back as Parker Selfridge. Thank God.
Mr. Untamed himself.
Joel David Moore is back as Dr. Norm Spellman. So thank God. Thank God Dr. Norm Spellman is back. Most of the human characters are kind of back, except you have Edie Falco in this as General Ardmore. Michelle Yeoh is in this. Oh, I didn't know. As Dr. Karina Moog. Brendan Cowell as Captain Mick Scoresby.
Okay. Jeez, Cameron's just trolling people now.
And Jermaine Clement is Dr. Ian Garvin, and Sigourney Weaver is somehow back, and same with Stephen Lang. Vin Diesel's in this movie too. Who is Vin playing? I don't know.
Finn Diesel?
Yeah.
He's like a giant fish.
Dr. Finn Daigle. God, Avatar. This is like the 5th highest grossing movie of all time. Or I think it's still up there as like number 2 or 3, right? But no one can name a character from it. You gotta love it.
Or cares about the mythology all that much.
Yeah, at all. I think we can. Oh, 3,000 Years of Longing. Thought the trailer looked awesome. Looks wild. I know the reactions out of Cannes were pretty positive, right? Like
mixed to positive.
Mixed positive. Okay.
So do you think this looks better or worse
than
Mad Max Fury Road?
We'll have to see. We didn't start that bit yet. We were going to start a bit where my rating scale was going to just be, is it better than Mad Max Fury Road? I thought Bros looked pretty good. Like I thought the podcast thing was kind of like I don't love that, but then
it's because it hits too close to home.
I
right?
think so, or it's just been overdone maybe, or something like that. But I think Nicholas Stoller is great, and I love the idea of a gay rom-com where every character is played by
someone in the LGBTQ
plus community.
Yeah.
And even the straight characters. So like I think that's,
well, the funniest thing about
awesome.
That trailer though is when like it's Judd Apatow's name is first before anybody else. It's like from the producer of Knocked Up and the 40-Year-Old Virgin or whatever it is. Like so the straight guy is claiming
it's still
the
first
romantic comedy.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But like
will it be too long? Probably.
Yeah, Nick Stoller
movies are pretty long, and they are in the Judd Apatow.
I agree. Spiderhead looked borderline too much, but I am curious. Like, Kaczynski, we both really like Top Gun. We just saw, and it has, I love Hemsworth, and who I think can be really funny. And in this, it seems like he's playing something pretty disturbing. So I'm curious. We're going to see that soon and review that. Any thoughts on Spiderhead or?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't talk about it too much in the review, but Joseph Kaczynski is a guy that just never Top Gun Maverick. I really liked, and I think visually speaking, he's a good enough filmmaker. But yeah, a lot of the movies all the movies he's made, with the exception of Top Gun Maverick, they've just never really connected with me personally. And I think the Tron Legacy thing, the score is the best part of that movie. Oblivion I could care less about, and then Only the Brave was fine. So this could be kind of a fun little side project that he made during post-production with Top Gun Maverick. It also has Miles Teller in it and Journey Smollett. So we'll see how that kind of goes, in terms of almost it looks like that British TV show The Prisoner, where this one guy's captive on an island and finds out that there's a whole sort of society. It's basically that's what Lost took a lot from as well. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, for sure. Prey, I really liked the teaser. Predator sequels have been mostly miss, other than Predator 2. So sweaty. Just so sweaty.
Just a lot of just
something we didn't talk about with Top Gun either, but just movies in the 80s, everyone was just fucking sweaty, dude. Just everyone was.
Well, that's
so
why Tom
hot.
Cruise is always wanting to go for a shower in the first Top Gun.
It's everyone is so sweaty. I'm very intrigued. I like it's Dan Trachtenberg who's directing it, right?
Yeah, the guy did 10 Cloverfield
I liked 10 Cloverfield Lane quite a bit. I like this being in the past, you have a young indigenous
First
Nations person with it's basically the teaser is them running out into a field, and then you see the Predator like on them, and then like it's very
That's the
short.
sound it makes.
Doo. I forget what it is. Isn't it something like that? Is
Yeah,
it like?
it's more sinister
Yeah, it
than
is.
that, but
That
that would be
sounded
better.
that's replaced the sound effect with
It almost sounds inviting.
doo.
It's like,
Uh,
ooh.
I thought that looked dope. It's interesting. It's on Hulu, so it'll be probably Disney Plus here.
Yeah.
A lot of the
Or it'll be Amazon Prime, because
yeah.
some stuff like that Emma Thompson movie that played at Sundance earlier this year is going to be on Hulu in the US, but here it'll be Amazon
I have a
Prime.
feeling this one will be a Disney Plus one. Like it feels like Predator a big enough name that they'll probably keep it on Disney Plus for Disney Plus Star here.
Yeah.
That's my guess. I don't
I
know.
think we'll have to rate it on the sweaty scale though.
Yeah,
How
hopefully it's
sweaty is this movie?
very,
I
very
want more
sweaty.
movies where people are just like in the middle of like a heat wave fighting against
Yeah,
some sort of like
something.
supernatural
And
force.
just like, yeah, all the air conditioning is fucking broken and just like,
Beads of sweat,
God,
just
we watched that
beautiful.
in 4K and it was just like, oh my God, it looked, you can tell how hot it is. And I don't know
Yeah.
what, if they just drenched everyone before every take, but
That and Breakdown, like with Kurt
yeah,
Russell, like
yes, we
just
watched that.
so
Even the
sweaty.
poster for that is so sweaty. Hell yeah. Oh, and then finally, before we can't leave before we talk about Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Just what a just Mission Impossible trailers are a work of art on their own. Because the Fallout trailer just probably the best short film of the last decade. Um, part Dead Reckoning Part 1, like you can almost tell that they haven't finished the sound design or anything because it's mostly just
Score.
this Mission Impossible score that they recorded specifically for this trailer. Lauren Ball, I remember, tweeted that or something. And I just absolutely can't wait for this movie. And Tom Cruise is a madman. We talked about this on our Top Gun Maverick review. But just I can't believe we're just like over a year away. But I'm so glad
It
we get
sucks that
this
it's
little
not coming
taste.
this year though.
Yeah, it's interesting because like it's been like in the can. I know they had a lot of like COVID issues shooting it, and I know they shot it back to back, so that would have delayed post production because they shot part 1 and part 2. But and we're getting them a year apart, which is great, right? Is it only 6 months or a year? Or is it exactly a year between the
I think it's
two?
a year between
Uh,
1 and 2. I
yeah,
think Tom Cruise is being again very strategic with that, where it's like, it's probably the better way to do it as well, and
yeah.
avoid like the Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions kind of thing.
Yeah, but I love seeing Vanessa Kirby and
You're just a big Palm Khalif fan. You're just like,
you
yes,
know what,
just
the new cast additions. I'm all for it, dude. Like, it's again something we talked about in our Stranger Things thing where there are too many characters and you can't like all have their own moment and stuff like that, or it's overstuffed. But Mission Impossible can always add 2 or 3 new people and somehow make it work. Because like in this
or
one,
bring people
yeah,
back.
or bring people back. And
Henry
oh
Cherney,
yeah,
baby.
baby. Yes, yes. It's awesome. And like seeing Ilsa with the eye patch, Rebecca Ferguson with the eye patch, that looks dope.
But I don't want to be a
She's like
pirate.
she's got a fucking dope sword in a scene. And you God, seeing I think it's Henry Czerny that has the gas mask.
Henry
Is that
Cherney, yeah.
Czerny? That dope visual of him putting on the gas mask or one of the other dudes there. Haley Atwell showing up. You got the OG crew there. You see some glimpses at some of the stunts. The big one that they've teased of Tom Cruise driving the motorcycle off the cliff and then skydiving or whatever from a very low like altitude and stuff like that. It's just he's a madman, and it's just like these movies just absolutely fucking rule, and I have no idea how they're going to keep upping the ante. Again, we talked about this a lot on the Top Gun review, but I'm absolutely so stoked for this.
Yeah, same. I mean, it's one of those
You
things like
watched it
when
on mute at the Mattchelor Party because when
I
that
did, I had
that
to see it
that
right away.
The Croatian trailer leaked, which was funny.
But yeah, watching it, in the best quality. I'm excited whenever I'll get the chance to see it on the big screen. Maybe it'll be attached to Jurassic Park or something like that, or Jurassic World. Um, but yeah, it's just like one of those movies now where it's like I am totally 100% in on this.
And
So
bringing Kittredge back is so dope because
yeah,
he's only been in the first one, right?
yeah,
And like, where the hell's that guy been?
he's
Like,
been hanging out, man.
yeah, like, and I don't even know who the villain is in this, right? Like, do we even know who's playing the villain?
The villain is white people.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it always is. Oh, sorry. No, we know Azai Morales is
Yeah,
playing
who
it.
replaced Nicholas Holt.
Oh, interesting. Right. Okay, cool. I'm down.
He's also in the new Paul Schrader movie coming out later this year or
Master
maybe next
Gardener.
year. Yeah.
I'm down. That's cool, man. He was in Never Back Down, No Surrender. Remember Never Back Down?
I sure
He was
do.
also
I
in
remember
Jarhead 2. He's done a lot of weird direct-to-video sequels.
sequels that nobody asked for or
Yeah.
were necessarily needed.
Yeah.
Inside
Fantastic.
Man 3.
Done a lot of TV and stuff too. He was on Curb. Okay. NCIS. Yeah. Okay. Criminal Minds. I get it. How to Get Away with Murder. Okay. Blue Bloods. He's just done the
I think Charles Purnell's in the first Dead Reckoning as well, who was in Top Gun Maverick.
Oh yeah, he is. Yep, you are correct. He is in it. You got Carrie Elways, Rob Delaney.
Will Cary Elwes have a weird accent?
Yes, he always will. I hope he's playing Lawrence Gordon from Saw.
God.
I think that's gonna be it. Or we could go another 12 minutes and hit the 3 hour mark, which we could easily do.
I mean, we've been
We haven't
away for a
talked Gray
while, but
Man,
I
which I
mean,
thought,
Gray Man, the trailer for that came like a day or two after Mission
which
Impossible
was the
Dead
worst
Reckoning.
time for Netflix.
Yeah.
Just completely like, who there is sitting and going, guys, you know what? We should release this now. Even if they
Guys,
planned,
we have the better trailer.
even if they planned, like, even if they didn't know Dead Reckoning Part 1 trailer was coming, and I'm sure Paramount had to kind of put that out earlier because of the Croatian leak and stuff like that. Because it probably would have premiered with Top Gun and came out after. But the Gray Man trailer coming out 2 days later, it just did not help it
With
at
Christian
all.
Bale, the Gray Man.
Yeah. And then almost the same day as Thor: Love and Thunder. And, Netflix is trying real hard, and this seems like the biggest movie that they'll probably release so far. They're giving the Russos a ton of money. You have some big names. But I just found myself completely underwhelmed by it. Like, it looked like a bigger budget with bigger names direct to video. Like, no offense to Jason Statham or that, like, it felt like one of
Gerard
those, like
Butler.
Gerard Butler, like one of those not quite direct to video, but probably could have been. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Which is so weird because the Gray Man was a property that's been in development for years, and at various stages it had different filmmakers where it's like, okay, like I mean, this is not a joke. James Gray was going to direct the Gray Man, and like that movie probably would have been more focused on sort of the minutia of espionage.
yeah,
And now you look at this film and it just kind of looks like
looks
a
like Diet
generic
Captain America.
VOD
Like, and I know
action
you
movie.
have Chris Evans, obviously, but like, you have the writers from the Avengers movies and the Captain America movies, and
And
like,
this is Ryan Gosling's
and
first film since First Man,
which is
so
wild, and like a big action role for him, and Chris Evans playing a villain with a great mustache. But like, it's again, like, I don't know. I'm hoping for the best. Like, I hope it's at least like,
serviceable.
yeah, like, at right now at
It's
best
got to
it's
be
like,
better than Cherry. It's
it has
got to
to
be
be.
better than
But
Cherry.
if this also, tanks, like, they're going back to Marvel after that. Like, if this doesn't work, like, there's no chance in hell they don't go back to do Secret Wars or some
Well, also
shit.
with
But
Netflix, I mean, Netflix is at an interesting place right now. The Hollywood Reporter article was really interesting, and I was talking about how like Netflix is at this sort of stage where they're cutting a lot of their divisions and
they
funding
laid off a
for
lot of people in the marketing
the
divisions and
vanity
stuff. Like,
projects like The Irishman. Uh, so like
expensive vanity projects. Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, The Irishman was already basically set up at Paramount. It's just that Paramount couldn't, afford to make the movie. So I'm sure that movies like this will not be necessarily cut out of the budget because they want to have something to kind of continue a franchise. They're still trying with the old guard, obviously, as well. But it's a shame that movies like I'm thinking of ending things, or even like last year with The Power of the Dog.
They probably won't really make those movies anymore,
No.
right?
I mean, we'll still have Blonde, which hopefully will be a fall festival film.
Yeah.
So, one last hurrah.
But I don't know, like, I guess it's movies like this is what they're going to invest in, but like,
Yeah, or Adam Sandler films.
it's that Barry thing, right? Like it's like obvious jokes when it comes to poking fun at the algorithms, but like in the latest episode of Barry, there's a whole conversation. Yeah, it doesn't matter if your movie gets horrible reviews or shit, as long as the right people are clicking play on it, then that's all that really matters. So like those very niche art house kind of movies that sure get them a little bit of prestige in Hollywood and maybe lures some different filmmakers over and stuff like that, are they really moving the needle when it comes to subscriptions and retention and all this bullshit behind the scenes garbage that, prestige really is nothing. Like it's not gonna, what it is they need subscribers and they need to keep subscribers. It's like, is Power of the Dog and Irishman doing that for a select few of people? But like, it's gonna be shit like Red Notice and fucking Adam Sandler movies and even The Gray Man
and Tiger
like,
King.
yeah, like I I can't fathom that. Like if they haven't, I think it almost, they were so bitter that they lost this Best Picture like year,
Yeah,
that they're just like, we're done. We're not gonna
especially with
like,
streaming, losing it to another streaming service that wasn't trying hard.
that has expendable income to do that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
where Netflix now doesn't. They did originally, and now they're like, fuck, that didn't work out. So like, we have to start saving money. Where are we going to cut? Oh, this art house stuff is pricey and no one watches it. So not no one,
Snip,
but
snip.
like it's comparatively to something that's just going to be a popcorn movie with big name actors. Spend the money on the actors, luring them over, not a big director that you have to convince to give final cut and free range and a higher budget than they would get at another studio because they want it to be released in theaters. Or the only way you're going to convince them to come over is to give them a ridiculous budget, or else they'll go to a studio that will give them a more traditional model or something like that. So like, I just don't think that shit's going to happen. And I think other filmmakers have probably also seen how Netflix has buried their shit, that I don't think they're gonna really like flock over there anymore. Like, I don't know, man. They're in a weird spot.
Yeah.
I have no idea how they solve it. They'll just make more schlock like Red.
Well, even with account sharing, right?
Yeah.
Like how they're cracking or want to crack down on that, because I don't know how much they have done, and maybe they backed off a little bit, but like even just them trying to, get alienate the subscribers they already have by telling them that if they are sharing on a family plan or something like that, that you have to individually own your own account, per person. And it's just like, like you're going to actually have more people unsubscribe. And then even the stuff with like Ted Sarandos right now, with like how, he has kind of been using the whole like Fifth Amendment thing, or the freedom of speech kind of thing with like Dave Chappelle and Ricky Gervais, and defending, transphobic and gay slur and stuff like that. They are in a really weird sort of turning point where it's like Apple just like, I would laugh if somebody gave like one of the Apple CEOs a call and be like, "Hey, you just won Best Picture for Coda." It's like, oh, great.
Yeah, cool. Does that mean more people will subscribe to Apple TV Plus? Even though we don't really care, we're just kind of using it as like a value add to our phones and our other shit that actually makes us a ton of money. Is like,
the same thing with Amazon. Amazon doesn't really have to worry.
Oh, I know we've had this conversation a bazillion times. That's why I really think like we've already called the death of Netflix. I've already called it. It's gonna happen in the next 10 years.
Calling it time.
And whether it sticks around as Netflix but branded under another company who purchases them or something, but like, or it just gets merged with an Apple or Amazon, that's really ultimately where I see this going. Yeah, Quibi lasted
R.I.P. to a real
how
one.
many months did that shit last?
Remember, I mean, it was a joke. It was dead on arrival, but like it was such a joke. Like even
remember
when
that,
the
like, you know what people want?
pitched.
10-minute episodes of things that you can watch 40 of them in 10.
Yeah, they already have things like that are shorter, called TikTok
and YouTube. Like again,
it's like an old person being like, "What are the kids like these days? Let's try to."
Isn't that Hollywood like in a nutshell though? For the most part, is like always weirdly a little bit behind. Like,
Well, it's
I'm
even
like,
more behind even when like the idea like is first kind of stolen or sort of recreated for Hollywood. It's always like it's always going to be a year or two later. So like even just with like thematically what's going on in the world. So like movies about the Trump administration and things like that, and kind of like
that Tiger King TV show that came out, like, with John Carroll Lynch
yeah,
and
yeah, and
then
Kate
Kate
McKinnon.
McKinnon. I saw billboards for it with Nevis, and we're like, who the fuck wants that? Like,
No
no
one does.
one does. Tiger King 2 came out and no one wanted that. I don't think anyone watched it. And the
It was
first
a flash in the pan that kind of got people interested because it distracted them from the beginning of the pandemic, and like it just served its purpose, and that's fine. But yeah, nobody wants a sequel documentary
no
series
one wants a
or a
narrative. Yeah.
fictionalized narrative, even if it was at one point going to have Nick Cage
Yeah.
in it. Like, who cares? No one wants, like, it's like even with like Willow. Like Willow is like the talk about another legacy sequel or
Yeah.
legacy series. It's like, who wants a Willow series? Like, who asked for
Warwick
this?
Davis, I guess, but like,
But he's
um,
doing
I know
fine.
he
Like
is. Yeah, I don't know, man. Disney Plus wants some hashtag content, so
Ron Howard's
um,
like, oh, I'll come back.
Ron Howard will. You dangle a hot dog in front of that dude, and he'll be like, "Yeah, I'm in. You gonna have the hot dog?" And like, I'm just like, he'll do anything. And like, it's
Give me
just like, I.
put a little mustard
You
on
don't
that
even
bad
have to
boy.
like really give him anything. It's like, hey Ron, we can't pay. I'm in. It's like, it's like,
Okay.
it's like, sure. What? Hey Ron, we got this new project. I'm down. It's like, do you want to hear about it first? No, I'm good. Just tell me what you need. And
It's
I'm
called
like,
The Dilemma. I'm in. I'm
yeah.
in. I'm gonna do it.
Oh my
One of our
god.
greater tours. It's even gonna be funny because like again, like he's doing the narrative Thai rescue
Yeah,
movie,
yeah,
and it's just like it's all like white Anglo-Saxon actors like
yeah.
Viggo Mortensen and Colin Farrell and things like
Because
that. And it's
that's
just
the
like,
only story they got the rights to, right? Because
yeah,
remember that was all like a weird thing.
where like it's
It's
divided the
divided. Like
rights.
the actual Thai soccer team's rights were sold to someone else, but then the white divers were sold to Ron Howard.
Yeah.
Classic. And then like, it's
Ron,
just
can
like,
you make this movie? Hell yeah.
you can't have anyone Thai in it. It's like, I'll make it work. It's like, how is that?
Can my brother be in it?
This is fucking ridiculous. Hilarious. Okay, everyone. That's your 3 hour Untitled movie podcast. Can you tell that Eric and I haven't podcasted in a while? We had a lot to cover. We covered everything from the Mattchelor Party to COVID to Lord of the Rings and IMAX, The Boys, Barry, Crimes of the Future, The Inside Outtakes, Hustle, about 47 million trailers. We covered. It was
I
a
mean, Ron
Hustle.
Howard is the most important
Was
one. So,
Hustle the Adam Sandler movie? Is that what it's called?
yep,
Okay, cool.
yeah, because you watched
Um,
The Hustler, I watched
yeah,
Hustle.
that's where I got confused. Yes. Um, so thank you. If you stuck through this 3 hours, wherever it took, maybe it took you 3 weeks. Maybe I'm back from my vacation and you're just getting through this now.
It's like
We
you never
really,
left.
we really appreciate it. Eric and I, this was fun. We've done like 6 hours of podcasting today.
Jesus, it's already
Um, I know.
9:35.
I don't even think I'm going to Top Gun tonight. It's too late. I thought I'd make the 10:15 show, but I'm like, there's no chance. So I'll probably maybe go see Top Gun tomorrow or something like that. By the time you're listening to this, I've probably already seen it. Not that you care. Um,
Ooh,
Thank you.
petty bitch.
No, not that they care. They're like, you would listen to our Top Gun review, I guess, and then
Yeah.
the 40X experience might be on the next episode. Thank you all for listening or watching. We really, really do appreciate it. Eric and I are feeling much better, and we hope to be doing this on a more consistent basis, even if I'm leaving for
As
3
I leave, I hope we're
weeks.
doing this consistently.
For 3 weeks, we're gonna find a way.
Yeah.
If we record 2 or 3 episodes this week, maybe they're not gonna be 3 hours. Maybe they're 3 1 hour episodes that
And
we
we'll have
just,
some fun content, hopefully, like
yeah.
interviews and stuff like that, that'll kind of like keep people interested.
Uh-huh.
The 5 people that are listening
Shut up.
or watching interested. Alex
There's at
specifically.
least 6. Okay.
A shout out to Alex Reno, who's now working at TIFF, by the way.
Yeah, congrats to Alex. That's awesome. And in the press and industry. So
Yep.
he's in our realm. So like if we do get oh god, I got to do the TIFF application while I'm in Europe. That'll be fun. That's coming up soon. So I don't know where the hell the time goes, but this was a blast. Thank you all. We're glad to be back and we'll see you guys in 4 months. um, you could check out all of our new stuff. Top Gun Maverick review. We also have a review for Stranger Things 4. We'll probably have you by the time you're listening to this. Ms. Marvel should be out tomorrow. If you're listening to this on Monday, but it's Tuesday, the 7th, that it will be out. Our Ms. Marvel first 2 episodes review. We'll have reviews for Lightyear, Cha Cha Real Smooth, Spiderhead, all in the next couple weeks. So keep an eye out for that. Just head over to our letterbox, which is Untitled_movies.
And Tim Hortons French vanilla iced coffee.
Yeah, how dare you? It's called the Beebs Brew. Okay, get it straight.
We got to do it. It's got to be its own review.
Sure, that'll be some content we could put out while I'm gone. Just troll everyone. It's just 5 episodes of us reviewing random iced coffees, which actually sounds pretty great. Untitled_cast on Letterboxd. You can find me on all those social medias at Matt Rohrbeck.
And I'm Eric Marchand. You can find more of my video reviews on rogerstv.com/cinemascene and on the social medias at EM6211.
Until next time.
Oh, meat's back on the menu, boys.
Meek, no.
Is he dead?
He's falling apart. There's Meek. Will it focus?
Nope. Oh, no. Nope. It just looks like a weird little purple smudge.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.